Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the virtual Belcar series, the third round of action here. Another great Friday night of racing coming up from the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, a new addition to iRacing, the very first time I've been here, very much virtually speaking, of course, and a track that I haven't really seen anywhere, I must admit. Since Formula 197, Edward May. It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, Hasse. And it's a circuit that I've only had very recent experience actually commentating on iRacing. A good friend of ours, Hasse, Chaz Draycott, in his Formula 1 season, modelled off of the 98 season, rather, this time around, also at Magny-Cours. And it was a, let's say, very interesting round of racing to cover, and I think multi-class it's going to be even more spicy out there because it's not the widest track in the world.
It's certainly. I spoke to my teammates in the Simpac car here, Martin van Rijwijk. He's coming out currently fourth in qualifying. They sounded like they were struggling. He seems like he's picked up the pace. Either that or everybody is sort of struggling here. We've still got a few more minutes left in qualifying, so we'll just do our best to gather an overview, if you will. It's Boots and VDS by Undercut. Currently in the pits, I was about to say. But this car here, with a new livery, it's the #1 car of Anage Competition GT3 and a Logitech sponsorship on it. At least as far as I can see. Tell me if I'm wrong and if I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to, but it is the car we're seeing in the graphics as well. So I do believe it's about right. Edward, your thoughts on this new paint job for the Anage car? I mean, I very much like the old one. Not that this one is bad in any way. As a Dane, this does strike a familiar tone, if you will. And the Danish national team is playing tonight against Northern Ireland in our old national stadium. Maybe that's just a bit of a sign here. Lord knows.
I mean, I will say I am a big fan of the Anage Competition livery, both the previous one and this current iteration. There seems to be a lot more pink on it this time around, a little bit more vibrant, so it's difficult to miss them out on the circuit, but of course it was very difficult to miss them beforehand, especially when they were racing so well up at the front of the field, and I think that's where they're going to be aiming for tonight as well. They've had a topsy-turvy start to the season, not the domination out front that we're used to, so maybe this is a chance to get a bit more momentum back beneath their wings.
Yeah, well, indeed, be interesting to see just how this final bit of qualifying shapes up, Edward. At the moment, we have 3 teams within a tenth of a second in BLC1. BLC2 sees a strong advantage for the 877 Valkyrie X-Type car, with the Gaëtan Angers putting this car in to a strong finish so far. And for some weird reason here, I'm not seeing any of the correct liveries here, which is sort of a shame. I'm seeing
not the
all
best
the
for the commentator, isn't it, when the liveries aren't exactly loading
Is it
perfectly?
not perfect, Edward? All the cars are basically the standard iRacing paint. What's lucky about it is that on your end, it's going to be all the better, because you're not seeing my picture, you're seeing the picture through our lovely race organizers.
I'll tell you what, though, that's it. Anage Competition, top of the timings now in BLC1. So we were just talking about them a moment ago, and now they're up at the sharp end of the field. We're going to be seeing what actually the Anage Competition car can do in the other classes as well. BLC2, their Porsche Cup car, the number 10 being driven by Koen Klopman, currently up in the sort of podium places, or provisionally up in the top 3. It's the Anage Competition lineup, Anage Competition Oru, they're currently 4th and 5th in BLC3. Need to do a little bit better if they can emulate the success of their compatriots in the other 2 classes.
Indeed, and just with a few seconds left on the board here, it's now or never for the remainder of the cars in all of the classes. At the moment, B-Sim Racing G and the 912 Mercedes Jelle Verstraeten with a provisional pole time ahead of Matthew Schroeder here. And the 777, the Mercedes, does look strong here at Magny-Cours. This wasn't to be a lap for him. I think Jonathan Poulet and the Valkyrie 677 car into the pits as well. They go, and David van Glabeke in the 61. Sim Racing BE by ROI Management. It's going to be 5th on the grid for them as well. It's the intervals, I believe, that we're seeing at the moment. Yes, it is. So let's just switch it over to gap just to see the overall gaps from the leaders in the class as we're used to seeing it. And Edward May, it is an Ash competition on pole by 200ths of a second. Call it a close shot here at Magny-Cours. And if it's going to be that close for the race, well, it's going to be an interesting 3 hours that we're moving into here.
Yes, certainly very interesting. And it's one that I think is going to be exciting to see how it unfolds. Obviously, very late in the session on Arch Competition GT3 with that improvement to go on to provisional pole position. And I think it's one that, while the races are a little bit longer, it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all. It does set you up brilliantly for the opening stint to get out in front, control the pace, look after the tyres, look after the fuel as well. And then you can start to manage it as best as you can. You don't need to worry about what all the other cars in front of you are doing, because you're the only car out on the circuit able to control it. Essentially, all the others have to basically follow what you're doing unless they want to overtake you, and even then that's going to be difficult around this track.
And we've seen so many examples of it in real life in Formula One. I remember this one. It's been a few years since we've last visited, hasn't it, Edward? But it's certainly a track known for, well, two things basically. Being hard to overtake, but then also in real life being a place where the weather tends to be a little bit treacherous, tend to play a trick or two. Of course, not something that we will be seeing as of just yet in iRacing, but it'll be coming up. And I think a lot of the drivers will be dreading that moment. Regardless, we should be on with the grid here in a short few seconds. We're just waiting for the session to take over. There we go, indeed. An Ash competition on pole position ahead of Boots and VDS by Undercut, then Valkyrie X-Type competition with Simpack Noises there and Martin van Rooijweg on row 2. Sim Racing BE by ROI Management and SimWorld.be Fast, the two very similarly named cars, but not quite there yet. They're on row 3 together with the Firaco eSports and Sim Formula Europe on row 4. With the Maxim Robrook and Bravo by Airtime, 9th. That's on row 5 with Lexaro Racing, and then JWS Motorsports and Racer Racing Panda. That's 11th and 12th on the grid. 13th and last, but very much not least in PLC 1 is the RPM GT car of Navarre de Beau. And then to the PLC 2 pole sitter of Gaëtan Angers, the Valkyrie X-Type 877 machine, well clear of anyone else in class, basically ruling the Porsche Cups. ART Sim Racing 2, the 12 machine in second place ahead of RPM and Vince Peters. Then Koen Klopman in the Anage competition 10 car and Lucas Romano for DBR. ART Sim Racing with Angelo Luersa in the 35 machine. And then Sibo Barrett Brooks for Brab Charlie. Now Joris Finn for Team Vision and DBRB and Mitchell Costas in, well, overall 22nd. Tinderhunt and Brab Alpha by Airtime is going to be rounding off that part of the grid, that class of the field. And with that, that's going to take us on to the final field. Sorry, we're just going to go through it. I think we have a terribly long warm-up lap here, and it's not always the case that we have a lot of time to go through it. But so it is today. B-Sim Racing G, the 912 of Jelle Verstraeten on pole position in BLC 3, ahead of the Valkyrie X-Type GT4 car, the 777 of Matthew Schroeder, then Michael Holsters and SimWorld.be Rapid with Tom van der Kimmenade, an Arch competition, and Fabrice Cornelis, another on Arch competition, the 101, just etching out the 100 car this time around in qualifying. Traxxas by JWS Classics and the 6th car, the Aston Martin, 29th overall, just edging out Kimby Haidt in the Firaco eSports Black. Then Stefan Leger and Kenneth Franken for Squadra Veloce by BSR and BSim Racing S with the Mass Motorsports, or is it Mads Motorsport? I'm not quite sure, but I'll take it as a Dane. It's Mass Motorsport. Surely that is in the 209. And then Digitrax Racing Team in the 999 machine following them. And just to make sure that we're not missing out on anyone, that is the 34-car grid for today's race. And Edward, we've seen bigger grids and races before, but this track is going to be so tricky, even with a what some would call a modest field size. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be just about exciting. I was about to say wonderful, maybe for us to look at, but I'm not quite sure the drivers would agree with that statement there.
Yeah, no, you could have about 10 cars on this circuit. It'd still be a bit too congested at points. So I think we're going to be in for a real treat, and there's going to be action everywhere you look, especially once we get past the sort of first 20, maybe 30 minutes or so when we start to get the first round of traffic coming through.
So pardon me for a sec while I just try to reinstall the paint pack and see if that's going to make any kind of difference here. I do not have my trading paints running, so that's a good thing. And hopefully...
I'm trying to get mine working as well. It's being a little bit awkward.
You were on the same sort of issue as well. Well, maybe it's a general issue, but you were seeing the paints at least before, as opposed to what I was. It's going to be slightly
better, but
slightly better for you,
not so
but
much
slightly
anymore.
confusing.
All of a sudden, all my paints have vanished now, so not sure what's going on there, but hopefully that should be resolved in a moment's time. I would say at the moment, it is a exciting start to the race. Arnage Competition GT3 ahead of Utzent VDS by Undercut Red. Like competition, they're in third, and I think BLC2, it's all going to kick off.
And the BLC2 cars are going to be a fair bit slower, I think, around here than the BLC ones, but it is not going to be in a straight line necessarily, so it's going to be all on a braking all through the corners that we're going to see that sort of action happening, and just how the drivers sort of figure out to get through on this one. We'll just have to see through the final chicane, and just awaiting the green flag. A little bit of congestion here. And a little bit of a bump. Oh, and a crash on the green flag for one of the Lamborghinis. Further down the field, but we do have the green. And it is Arnage Competition with Bootsen, and someone's off on the outside. I think that's the SimWorld B spinning onto the track. More calamities here for one of the Audis. And... and a spin for the number 9 as well there, Edward.
Not the greatest of starts for them out there. It's just absolute calamities. It was even kicking off before we went full green flag racing.
But it's true. It's true that hardly went green before we had the first car. There was a little bit of a check-up moment further down the running order, and then from there on, well, it all just turned sour. So many places in the field. Of course, it's like rings in the water sometimes. You get that sort of rippling effect down through the pack. Very, very, very hard to do anything again. Oh, and I think I'm getting the right paints here. So that's lovely. Have they even got a new paint job on the Arnage Lambo? I'm not quite sure. I might have been talking absolute, for lack of a better word, pardon my French, but BS about this. Apologies on my behalf for that one, but we do have the racing underway. I'll see if I can just gather an overview of where it all started to go wrong, but we'll see if we can catch up on just what happened there on the opening lap. But it's been a hectic one. I was just about to do the Mads Pedersen one, call it hectical. I'll refrain from that indeed. But in BLC 1, Carlos Diegues on Ars competition leads Thomas Cuvillier and Boutsen VDS by undercut with Jonathan Poulet and Martin van Rijwijk for Valkyrie X-Type competition and Simpac Noises 3rd and 4th. So as they were, I think for the top 5 and the first one to have made any real gains is this gentleman, Ben Thanes, and the Furaco eSports white machine. Let us just get the driver details up on screen again, just to make absolutely sure that we're seeing the right car. I am at least seeing the right cars again. That is very, very nice here. And the leader, of course, in BLC2, Vince Peters, RPM. A lot of stuff has happened here, Edward, and I feel like the leader, the Valkyrie X-Type 877 of Roger Christiansen, they've dropped the position in the chaos. A little bit of shuffling here. And then the SimWorld.be rapid car of Steven de Leersnyder. Now with the 14 car of Jeroen Wadlet coming through. That's going to be a tough one to master for them. Oh, and there's a pass earlier of further up here. That's the Boutsen car. That's Cuvillier. And he's had some kind of moment here, Edward. Let's see if we can just have a look at it. This is just a... Van Rijwijk just sort of packs him in there for... But from way back, Jonathan Poulet made his way through as well. I'm wondering if that might have been some kind of slowdown, but I must admit I'm not quite sure how it's looking at this track with the slowdowns and where they would tend to get him in the first place.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe, like I say, I haven't actually driven this track, so in terms of where the slowdowns are easily gained, I wouldn't be the first to say. I could imagine it's likely to be on the exit, maybe of the corner before the final chicane, and maybe even actually through the final chicane as well. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure what other zones are likely to hit you with a slowdown just by pushing a little bit too hard and going outside track limits. But we can see at the moment, Arnage competition off to a dream start, aren't they, in the BLC1 class?
Yeah, indeed. They have been rolling away with it there. Carlos Diegues is really the class of the field here in the opening laps. So quick. Already that 3-second gap. Gonna get the interval up on screen for you there. I think that would be a fine idea. As you can see, they're over a second quicker than anyone else as they complete the second lap of racing here. And good move from Van Rijwijk there, but there's a bit of a train forming with Cuvillier and David van Glabeke. We saw someone further down in BLC1 who had a bit of a moment as well. Oh, and there is trouble for the RPM GT car. They're in the pits. It's the 33. Still the 114 of Steven de Leersnyder, the SimWorld.be rapid car leading Edward. But I'll just try and get a look down through our event viewer here, Edward. I'd like to get a second look at just what happened at the green flag here. So let's try and see if we can get a second view. Oh, there we have it. It's pretty far down the BLC1 field. And it's not because we're looking particularly for Ben Thanes. The 14 goes around. That's Jeroen Wadlet. And then there's contact. That's the 101 being tipped around as well. And that felt like there was only a partial, like there was only a bit of the explanation as well here. Problem for David van Slambroek. Oh, he has to go on the brakes. And the Racer Racing Panda car. And onto the gravel for him. Oh, there's a sliding BMW there. Oh, and another There's the JWS. And then another one as well. Oh my word, this absolutely calamitous start in BLC 3 here. I'd be far-fetched looking for any kind of explanation here, as Van Rooijwijk has the inside on Cuvillier. Almost gets the position back on the Simpec car. There's some heavy fighting here. This is going to be costly in regards to the leading two cars. And of course for the Boutsen VDS, who qualified second, Edward, they can't be happy with being stuck here in 4th place by now.
No, it's been an absolute nightmare start for them. Like we say, it's Arnage haven't really profited, and I think it's fair to say that the other cars, the Boutsen car, is just not having a good time whatsoever. But look at that gap now. What is that, 3 seconds in BLC1? That is immense over the course of, well, a very small window of time in the grand scheme of things for this race. What's happened here to David Van Slambrook?
Oh, it goes a little bit deep there into the lycée section, the school section. I don't know if they named it such because it's going to teach you how to drive, but it's a very, very technical final sector. Very technical track, of course, all the way through, but that final sector leaves, let's say, nothing desired to the level of technicality that it requires of the drivers there. Ben Thanes a little bit behind now. There might be a new move brewing there. Van Rooijwijk defends the inside. Cuvillier is looking for the way around. And given that the Dutchman came from so far back, Edward, it's a long struggle to regain the position for the Boutsen VDS car.
Yeah, but there's plenty of time in the race still to come back into it, isn't there, Hasser? It's not like this is race ending. There's opportunities for them. It's just, like you say, a big setback, and one that they're going to have to, I think, dust themselves off and think about again. Just the bigger picture. It's not ideal. Obviously, this wouldn't have been what they planned for, but sometimes you need to be, the best teams are able just to adapt and try and figure out alternative strategies to change the complexion of their race.
Indeed. We had a problem for Lucas Vane, and the 992 just about catches it, though, at least in the first place, but then the 9 spins, sort of as a result, maybe having to overcorrect a little bit. And there might be an incident or two that we that we missed there in the opening few moments of the race, but a lot happening, and I think a lot of the drivers will be more than happy that it's settled down. Oh, we've had some changes for position here, because the Boutsen car did get passed on Maarten van Rooijwijk, and now David van Glabeke in the 61 being shown a very familiar treatment. Van Rooijwijk finding out early just how to defend in the Adelaide hairpin. I'd like just to see what gave the Boutsen car of Thomas Cuvillier the position. Here we go. Oh, that is not gonna make Maarten van Rooijwijk all too happy about it. I mean, it was fair and square, but by the inch of the fingernails there, Edward. Close. So it seems that Edward May has encountered a bit of a technical gremlin. So I'm not the only one to be sort of hit on that front for tonight. And I'll do my best to keep the ship floating on my own until Edward will be back to rejoin us shortly here as Fabrice Cornelis in the 100 is finding that the track is just about not wide enough for him to make it through on the 876. The lights are flashing. He's not all too happy about it. It's Hansi Pullmans for Firaco eSports Black there up ahead, making life difficult for the 100 BMW driver. Might still be a single livery that we're not seeing. Or is that just me? That is just me. And that is a massive gap indeed there. Steven de Leersnyder in the 114. 6 seconds clear of Jelle Verstraeten here in the 912. And then Hansi Pullmans. Fabrice Cornelis there in the 100. Having made good progress so far, but they will be slightly frustrated of having to take the fight, at least to this level, this early in the race. In BLC2, it's RPM in the 32 car here, still with Vince Peters. Roger Christiansen in the 877 following in close behind, just biding his time, looking for a way through when that opportunity might just arise. And then it's the ART Sim Racing 2 car with Benjamin De Pape. And then Jamie Mollema. And Lucas Romano. Of course, Jamie Mollema in the ART sister car. So they're both doing quite well for themselves. Up in BLC1, still status quo as well, as David van Klaberke has lost a little bit of time there to the Simpact Noises car of Maarten van Rooijwijk. And Ben Thanes now on the tail of the number 61 Audi. As the V10 scream down the back straight. We really seen in practice as well, coming into this race, just watching a few of the practice sessions, just to see how the drivers were actually getting along. And so many of the corners and the corner complexes on this track really seems to want to offset the cars. There's a GT4 machine off on the left-hand side. It's the 209 of, I think that would be Kevin van der Wielen, or yeah, Sean van Lint in the 9 car having trouble of his own all up ahead. And here Kevin van der Wielen, as the BLC 1 leader, has just about made his way through. Oh, and he's gonna get a major bump on the rear end there. No mistake of his own. That is definitely gonna be the first penalty of the race, if it's not already been given out, but the stewards are certainly going to be having plenty to look at here. Now Van Rooijwijk with company from Van Klaberke. With Ben Thanes and Firaco eSports looming in the background in their Lamborghini. It's Lamborghini leading 4 Audis at the moment before we see the next Lambo. So certainly the Anache team are doing something right here. But they're running into traffic now, and not only BLC 3 traffic, but some of the BLC 1 cars that struck trouble in the opening lap of the race. And that's not necessarily perfect for Diegues in having to encounter the traffic on the tail of another BLC 1 car, but he's going to be led through here, so that's just about perfect for him. The gap around 3.8 seconds. And then the Boutsen car here now having put in a pretty solid advantage to Simpact Noises. Again, has David van Klaberke on the tail. And now we see the dance of traffic really starting to take place. And from here on, basically all the way through, it's going to get no easier for anyone to keep the car on the gray stuff at all times. By the way, a relatively cool 23 degrees of air temp, but a track temp of 37. So will be conditions where drivers be forced to keep at least half a woken eye on their tire temps and trying to make sure not to overcook the rubber underneath. Hansi Pullmans for Firaco eSports Black here in the 876 car. He's right on the tail of Jelle Verstraeten, and he's got Fabrice Cornelis right on his tail as well. The 100 BMW who we're expecting strong things from, but yet again, not the first time we've seen it this season. Maybe not quite there on qualifying pace, but certainly on race pace. They've been here and they've been there throughout. Very much expected from a team that is housing and fielding a two-time ELC 1 overall champion. Martin van Rijwijk here still at the head of one of the closest battles at the field. It's between this one and then the battle for position here still very much happening in BLC 3. Look at the Anache Lamborghini, the number 1 car. Has to come up through on the 100. Does so, but this is slow progress. He sort of has to pick them off one by one in through this section here. Really seemingly a a piece of work, and something that will really require a lot of patience, especially from the BLC 1 drivers as we get deeper and deeper into this race. I think we're going to see a few examples of good old concentration just slipping up. Fabrice Cornelis still looking for a way through on the 876, who in turn is still looking for a way through on the 912. As more traffic is happening in a very, very close battle. It's side by side. They're going 2 ways around this one. That's magic. Amazing indeed, as Ward Mallet did not quite get the move done. Or will he? I'm a little bit at a loss, I must say, to as just who did get that one done here. I think it was indeed Arno van Hout for Lexaro Racing. And after having split the traffic into 2, basically a tiny touch. And then Van Hout with a very good run through that chicane, and a little bit of a flash there, but also certainly these moments painting a picture of just how hard it is to find a way through on the other cars. By the way, a very warm welcome to all of you joining in tonight on a lovely Friday evening. I assume that summertime is really settling in over most of Europe here, at least. We've been enjoying some very dry weeks, some hot weeks as well in Denmark. So having a bit of rainfall on us today actually wasn't the worst that could happen. But I do hope you're enjoying yourself out there. I do hope you have your snacks and your drinks, your sustenance of choice to go through these remaining 2 hours and 40 minutes, the opening 20 minutes, having absolutely flown by. And Jamie Mollema has had 5 seconds off of the track here. Let's see what happened for the Dutchman. Oh, just getting 1 o'clock. Oh, and a slight touch with the barrier, but I suspect the Porsche Cup car is going to be pretty much okay. Of course, I'll try my best to see if we can just keep an eye on race control as well, and see when the penalties are gonna be flung, because I have a suspicion that they are indeed gonna be put into use, to put it mildly, tonight. In this battle here for 7th place in BLC 1, that's the Sim Formula Europe aboard Mallets, the Audi, ahead of the 42 Bravo by Uriah Time, driven by Jarne Biesmans. It's a little bit of a naughty move there, all the way through, but through they came, and still all alive, but barely just. I think there's been a bit of a change for position as well here, because Fabrice Cornelis, and I wonder, but Ben Thames has had a problem as well. That might be it. No, that is certainly not it. But the 13 car into the gravel getting turned. Just what happened to Hansi Poonmans? There he is, but I wonder. We'll see here. Fabrice Cornelis with the pass. Late on the brakes. Oh, and he just goes onto the bottom track where there is absolutely no grip at all on the outside there. Get a tire out there. When the tire gets loaded, the car's just gonna basically wash wide. And seemingly, I think it's gonna happen for all eternity, basically. So a bit of a change of position as well in BLC 3. Still a healthy 7-second lead for Carlos Diegues in the Anache competition GT3 car, ahead of Jonathan Poulet. And then Thomas Cuvillier for Boutsen VDS undercut. That's the top 3 in BLC 1. Vince Peters for RPM ahead of Roger Christiansen in the Valkyrie Excite 877 car. And then Benjamin De Pape for ART Sim Racing 2. That'll be your top 3 in BLC 2. And then in BLC 3, still Steven De Leer Snyder ahead of Jelle Verstappen for B-Sim Racing G. And then now, having gained first place, Fabrice Cornelis in the 100 Anache competition Eau Rouge machine.
Hello, everybody. I think I've managed to fix whatever issues were plaguing me. As I say that, it all seems to go again. Hello. I think it's having a bit of a moment.
I do hear
connection.
you, Edward. Do you?
Oh no, we're all good. Okay, never mind. It's just the cars have vanished for a second. Not a problem. All of a sudden, as soon as I come back, then I have another issue, and for some reason I can't seem to see any cars on track. And has it just put me from the session? I think it has done. Oh, that's fun. Never mind. False alarm. The issues have returned.
Well, that's wonderful. So the Gremlins return for Edward May, and hopefully we'll get that stuff up and running again. Edward, I've set up a Discord stream. Maybe that'll be to just a bit of assistance. You try and get iRacing service to connect. I did have quite some troubles just connecting myself as well. So maybe the whole new build, new track thing, maybe this time around there is something that needs to be ironed out, at least around the service that does indeed usually get that stuff done. Dare I say that at least they get it done. That's,
yeah.
Saying no more about that.
I'm glad it isn't just me that's been having issues getting to the server. See, if it seems like it's a issue that's been happening to people and finding difficulties getting into the server, at least that makes me feel a little less aggrieved, I suppose. Although it's never great when you're a broadcaster and commentator that not getting into the server isn't exactly what you want to have happen, but I can just about see what's going on track in terms of the overlays and everything. So can see that it is playing up in BLC 2. Only Klopman in third for the Arnage competition pink car. And again, it's usually a tale of one class that's going to be having a lot of the limelight, and I think tonight it could be this BLC 2 class is the main attraction for the evening.
Sorry, I had myself on a little munchie mute there for a moment. As it's been before, Edward, there's been a bit of an upset, I think, because Roger Christiansen in the 877 has lost 2 positions and has responded now by putting in the fastest lap of the race so far in BLC 2. So, it'll be interesting to see just what happened to the Norwegian. Oh, goes, whoa. Whoa! And how has he done the fastest lap after this? I would be... That looked very strange.
Weight saving, essentially there. That is, yeah, it's very strange there from...
Brake that doesn't do anything or something. Let's just go on board with him for a moment here. Yeah, it's just coasting, right?
Yeah, it's like the brake just doesn't work for whatever reason, or it might be in a hardware issue. The screen freezes, it doesn't put in the inputs. Could have been something like a PC freeze, because it just goes straight, doesn't it? But interestingly enough, the car still seems to have a decent bit of pace in it, carrying on without a front bumper.
And he's just gone past, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
On the 10 car. Yeah. He has actually just gone past on the 10 car. He's now on the tail of the 12 machine, looking for that on-track position that he lost before. Meanwhile, it's heating up for second as well here with Jonathan Poulet and Thomas Cuvillier in the 17, Boutsen by VDS undercut red car. Just noticing that I managed to miss the red part. If that I'm deeply sorry, of course. I'll do my best to get that ironed out. The 12 machine, Edward, under attack from a car that has just been plowed into the wall. This is rather incredible. How on earth does the 877 do? Oh, that gets the tap there from the 12.
No. Thought he got the position done there, but just onto the brakes, a little bit of bumping and barging. I think that's more the Arnage car now backing out of that one. The ART Sim Racing car rather backing out of that one. Essentially realising that, made a bit of a mistake there into the braking zone and thought just let them have the position. Didn't want to gain any unfair advantage. So great sportsmanship on display, but that was very interesting. And how has this car got so much pace with the damage it's got? That's amazing.
It's pretty incredible. It's flying along. He's absolutely sending it. But it seems to me that it's not really hampering the car too much. It would obviously take a bit off of the top speed you would expect, but maybe just getting the good exits onto the relatively short straights here is just about enough, maybe. Interesting regardless, that has to be said. This is now heating up even further. It was about 7-8 tenths last time we checked in. That has now been halved. And the Boutsen VDS car on the tail of our second place. Edward, the two Audis here battling out. Let's go on board here with the Thomas Cuvillier.
Here we go with Thomas, like you say, trying to chase down that second place. The Valkyrie X-Lite competition has been, well, the main competition to Arnage out in front this season, but so far here at Magny-Cours, it's not been going their way. It's really interesting to see how Hometown Heroes will be able to fare here at such a difficult and demanding circuit, but currently the Frenchman we're on board with is going very well indeed. There's a bit of blinking and that wasn't there from the Valkyrie car just up in front. That's a little bit concerning. Hopefully that isn't one that's going to be race ending. I know that all too well. Obviously, as you're aware, my internet connection isn't the strongest, and that has not only played its part in the booth, but also when I'm behind the wheel in the sim. And sadly, it's been a bit of a shame to have your races. Oh, dearie me, that was. Oof, there's a fine line between brave and reckless, and I think that was just dipping into the realm of brave, but that was so close to an incident there, overtaking the BLC3 car.
That was very close to the realm of brave indeed, Edward. That was finally put. That was, yeah. There's 2.5 hours of racing left here, and there's another blink here on my screen as well. For that Valkyrie. Hoping it's not going to be any lasting connection issues on their part. Hopefully it's just the service running a little bit heavily on this new track, as I think a lot of the teams will be noticing as well. Oh, look at this here. David van Glabeke now right on the tail of the Simpack Noises car. Martin van Rijwijk with company here from the 61. For all of you commentary roulette players, notice the upside down number 13, a lovely little cycling reference on the Simpack Noises car. It's only, of course, the number on the back, as you would expect it. The BLC ones as well, having to make their way through the field, Edward, and it does look relatively difficult to find somewhere to actually pass the BLC2 cars, because as long as the BLC2s are staying on the racing line, you really have to think about lining up the move to make it stick. As you see, they're being left for dead on the straights.
Yeah. You need the patience of a saint if you're in the BLC1 cars, don't you, at the moment, Hasser? It's so difficult for them to find any way around them. Like you say, because the pace is so similar and because it's so difficult to overtake, you've got to essentially rely on just the pure acceleration. The top end is it going to help you, because, like we said, the Porsche Cup cars are rocket ships. Then you get towards the top end, it's only putting the power down that they struggle, and that's just purely because they don't have the same amount of traction control, or any traction control rather, in comparison to the BLC1 cars.
Yeah, no traction control, no ABS on the Cup cars either. Or did they get ABS on that last rendition of the Cup machine? Now
I don't think they have ABS.
Don't think they have ABS.
So.
I don't think so either. At least they didn't used to, and I'm quite sure they still don't. It's been a while since I've driven the Porsche Cup. I'm afraid it's a brilliant car to drive, at least in my opinion. It's a divider of opinions I am quite aware of, but I do certainly enjoy it. It's been a while since I've been in it. It is certainly a driver's car. That's a bit of a cliche, and nonetheless, still all the true here as Van Glabeke is side by side with Van Rijwijk. But they're coming down towards another right-hander, and Van Rijwijk knows exactly where to put the car in order to make that overtaking maneuver very, very difficult indeed. They have a healthy 6 seconds down to the Lexaro car of Arno van Hout. Still no way through for Van Glabeke. There's certainly attempts being made here at the moment, Edward. On board we go with the 61 here.
Yeah, they're trying, but you can't actually be able to overtake just by trying hard enough. You need to actually get the move done by, well, being successful. You can try for all you want. Here we go, though. David van Glabeke, look at how close he does get onto the brakes. But through here, it's just all about the flow of the car. There's no real ways to send moves up the inside. Like you say, you just got to be patient and maybe just force a mistake. That's essentially the easiest way for drivers to make moves, is by taking advantage of other drivers and their slight misfortunes here and there.
Oh, so very true. We've had a problem, I'm afraid, for David van Lambroek. It says Lucas Romano, but that might be because they went into the pits. It says he crashed here. Maybe I got to press the wrong thing there. It flipped over onto the next page. Anyway, here's the issue for Van Slambrook, just way overshooting the corner. Comes back on track, I think. So it seems no drama there. So a situation that could indeed have been way worse than it turned out doing and turned out being. Look at this here, Edward. The Boutsen car now really picking up the pace, and they're on the tail of Jonathan Poulet. That Valkyrie car is going to have to start dancing a bit there up ahead in order to stay ahead of the 17.
It's going to be so tricky. Like you say, that 17 car is looking very quick at the moment, isn't it? Thomas Gouvillier, the Frenchman on home soil, looking very much at one with car and circuit. Fabrice Cornelis getting hip checked and bumped wide there by, that was one of the BLC2 class cars. Wasn't quite sure which one that was, just missed the number going by us. That might have been the 13, was it? The 13 of Benjamin De Papa?
Yeah, so it did seem, but I'm actually doing a very good job there. Just seeing where the track was going and just saying, well, there's no reason to...
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just take the shortest route to get onto the track again and do so with stability as well.
I've just noticed something as well.
Yes. Go ahead.
BLC2, Vince Peters is under pressure here, I think.
Oh, by the damaged
Valkyrie
877
Exop car. It's absolutely rapid there. I'm not sure what's gone on here at all, but look at it. It's completely mangled at the front, but it doesn't seem to affect Roger. Well, if it is mangled, no one's told the driver behind the wheel. Roger Christensen is absolutely going for it. The Norwegian is flying.
It almost looked like a sort of hill climb mud, just running exposed radiators at the front and then a splitter. It's a bit bizarre that a car with that amount of damage, I mean, it's at least not a front-engine machine, we're very much aware of that, but it's a little bit bizarre to see a car that's been smashed around like that do so well. But you can see Roger Christiansen seems to be very, very cool around the traffic. Maybe he's been a bit lucky as well, just in the timing of where he's picked up on those BLC3 cars. By the way, BLC3, speaking of him, the 114 of Steven de Leersnyder, the car in the picture right here, is doing a brilliant job at the moment. It with 11.5 seconds clear of the 912. Who in turn now, after that little bit of an argy-bargy moment for the 100 machine of Fabrice Cornelis, they're now 3 seconds down on the 912. You can see him just coming in to the Adelaide hairpin. Ever so slightly adrift of the 912 Mercedes. But still very much, as you said, a battle for the lead here in BLC2. An interesting one, and we'll keep our eyes on the 877. Might they just consider not going for the fast repair and saving it for later in the race when it turns out the pace is clearly still there in the car, Edward?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure what's been going on with it, but if it's working for them, why not? The only thing I will worry about is, of course, if this is affecting the engine temperatures at all, because obviously if you get radiator damage, that causes the heat to climb and climb the oil pressure, and then all of a sudden, well, the engine goes boom, and that's your race over with. So maybe they'll have to take a repair just for safety's sake more than anything else to keep them out of danger. I knew that was a real big issue in the old LMP2, if you can remember how, so the HPD, if you've got any amount of radiator damage, you wouldn't notice. You'd be driving along, and then all of a sudden, about it could be 5 laps, it could be 50 laps time, all of a sudden, there'd be an almighty crunch, and your race would be over in a cloud of smoke.
Yeah, and certainly not the only car that was prone to that type of failure. Something we're seeing less of in the world of iRacing, I feel like, nowadays. Engine failures. Becoming a relatively rare occasion. I think for a lot of the drivers, it'll be enough with PC crashes and hardware failures and disconnects and what the world of computing will throw at you, basically. More than enough, I think, for most to struggle with. Vince Peters here still with that about half a second, we could just see the relative coming down so quickly for Christiansen, but I think that Norwegian here maybe is having a bit of a hard time finding the run, but he's looking super on edge. Still perplexed to...
Saving a lot of fuel as well, actually. You could just hear lifting and coasting massively into the hairpin there. So not only is he close, but listen to that massive lift there. So he's managing the race as well as taking the fight to Vince Peters out in the lead of the race. Look at that was a massive whack over the curb. That's, I mean, if it isn't damage on the front already, there would certainly be damage after that. But I guess, you know, in for a penny. Why not go in for a pound, you know? Just really chuck it at the curbs, because it's not like the front end is going to be getting any worse.
That is true. Oh, the sound of grinding tires. Further down, I'm afraid.
Oh, dearie me!
Oh, my word!
Oh, I thought for a moment that was a cheeky little send by David Belcar.
Let's just see if we can...
I think that might have been more of a misjudgment rather than an actual send, but nevertheless, it was a very gutsy attempt at a move if it was one. It didn't obviously come off successfully, but it was still excellent just to see that little cheeky move as we see Jana Wiesmans getting around the inside of the Valkyrie GT4 car.
In the words of yourself, Edward May, I would call that brave.
Yeah. You reckon it's brave and it's not the other one?
Yeah, well, that was brave. That was brave.
Okay.
I don't think it was necessarily the intention. I think you're right, and sometimes you just find yourselves a little bit late on the brakes. You just have to scoot alongside the car in front in order not to hit him, and will usually come out looking something like what we saw right there before the 3 car.
Excellent awareness, wasn't there, to be fair, by the car ahead.
Definitely. I don't know if we've spoken about that machine, Edward. I think they have the DBRP machine of Dieter de Vlaming here. Get into a little bit of a tough one here tonight, but what a nice looking car. Beautiful livery, has to be said.
Really nice, very vibrant. It's certainly a car that's easy on the eyes, isn't it? The DBRP. So to be fair, is the DBR car and the RPM cars. They're all looking very nice indeed. As this was
that's
a
the
massive
101.
hit there, right up the rear of the 101 car, and that was a hit into the wall as well, side on. And I think that is. Yeah, that might be suspension damage. We'll have a look on board. Oh dear, just completely misses the braking point. It's distracted maybe by the 2 wide up in front and scraping along the side. A decently hard hit into the concrete barriers as well. And we'll see the car when it gets back up and running. Actually, it's already taken a trip to the pits, so this could be a lengthy repair if that fast repair wasn't checked. So we'll see what's going on there. That 13 car has not got up and running, and it's been stationary for nearly 3 minutes now. So dramas in a BLC 1 class, but also BLC 3, because Tom van der Kimmenade was an innocent bystander and all that. But judging by the shape of the car, no, there is a bit of a dent in the back end, but aside from that, looks to have gotten off rather lightly there, thankfully.
Yeah, incredibly so. Still with the 877 saving fuel on the tail of the RPM car leading ahead of them here. I think that is gonna stay as it is coming into the first round of pit stops. That was the race leader, by the way, on the tail of the leaders of BLC2. Interesting to see just how this is gonna go, but that's Roger Christiansen with a mature bit of multi-class driving, just taking the opportunity to save a little bit of extra fuel, and then maybe a little bit of extra fuel, as he probably has to lift in behind the Lamborghini. It's just strange dynamic for the BLC2 cars to actually be quicker than the BLC1s in a straight line. Of course, in no way around a lap. But I do remember with the old Cup cars, we had a race at Le Mans where the BLC2 cars were actually really challenging.
Yeah,
I was but with the radicals
great,
back then, I think, but it was great racing.
Oh,
it made
that was madness, wasn't it?
Very, very fun. Yes, indeed, that was absolute madness. The 100
I have to say, I do
car,
love the radicals. Actually, I do sort of miss them a little bit. Actually, especially with the new one added to iRacing, or the sort of slightly newer one. It's been around on the service for, I think, the best part of a year now. Actually, hasn't it? The renewed radical, but nevertheless, is a fun little bit of kit. If you haven't driven it before, I highly recommend giving it a whirl because it's just so raw and powerful. I mean, you get the same sort of sense of rawness in the BLC2 cars, the sort of renewed Porsche Cup machinery with no traction control or ABS, but still, I think there are a lot of things comparable to the feel of a radical as the traffic battle is continuing on, and we saw for a moment Fabrice Cornelis maybe having a little cheeky look around the BE Sim Racing car. Here we go, opportunism personified up the inside. There's a spinner out ahead as well. That shouldn't take any part in this fight, though. Let's look at this now. Lovely move by Fabrice Cornelis, slightly struggling on the exit. I think we can see, yep, the Lamborghini has gotten it through just in one piece.
That was a masterful move.
Scary stuff, wasn't it? But that was beautiful, wasn't it? I think we're all around the outside, gave each other just about enough room. And then Navarro de Bova has seen all this going on around him and then has to essentially slap himself in between the pair of them. But you could just tell that the move was going to open up from as soon as we saw the traffic playing its part. That was inevitable, as this was what happened to the 31 Audi. Just over rotates, a bit too much speed taken in to the hairpin there.
Yeah, and such an easy mistake to make as well. To try to carry as much speed as possible through these slow corners to maintain the momentum of the car. And the rear just over rotating, especially if you're coming off the throttle with the clutch engaged, trying to do that extra bit of fuel saving, lifting and proper coasting. Well, always comes in with the risk of sort of upsetting the car a little bit as you engage the clutch again. But that was the pass for second place there for Fabrice Cornelis as he's making his way up through the field. And it'll now be a little bit of a different challenge because the gap to class leader, Steven de Leersnyder, in the SimWorld.be Rapid car is 17.5 seconds. So a fair bit of distance to chew into there for Fabrice Cornelis. And Arne van Hout with Jeroen Vatlet on the tail. Vatlet had a tough opening part to his stint here. He's trying to come back for the 14 SimWorld.be fast cars. He's properly going for it up the inside and making the move stick there. That was opportunistic as well, Edward, but well played for both of them. Just about being able to play ball with one another. Got a second look at it here.
It's all about the awareness and the willingness of the drivers to make it nice and clean, and that was, I think, excellent displays of just that, of the awareness that you need to have at a circuit like this, because it's so technical, it's so twisty. You've got slower cars, you've also potentially got faster cars coming up behind you as well. It's all something to really worry about, and it can tax the drivers quite a bit, to be fair, as look at that bouncing over the curbs as we come now to the fight in BLC2 for the class lead, and it's still Belcar X-Type chasing down RPM, but I think at the moment the Norwegian Roger is quite happy just to sit behind and save that fuel.
It looks like they want to just take the position on the first coming pit stop here, and then it does seem to make sense as well, Edward. We've seen it already in the opening hour of this race. It can at least be a little bit of an expensive trade-off when you start battling, and especially if it's for a spicy position in the car ahead. isn't really going to be wanting to give way in any way. So it's sort of the safer approach, aiming to do the extra lap, or maybe even two, being able to put on the pressure at that time of the race, and then using the overcut on the pit stops to gain the track position. But we'll see. We'll see whether it works out for Valkyrie X-Type and the 877 or not. But I am expecting them to make good progress. It's been pretty amazing to see the pace of a car that just, well, you know, one second the car went straight into the wall, and then the moment after it was setting purple lap times, and it sort of still looks like it's the fastest car of the field, at least driven by Roger Christiansen here. He's doing a sterling job, to say the very least.
Yeah, no, I have no idea where they found the pace from, especially considering the damage, but it hasn't looked at all difficult to control or drive. It's looking just the same as the perfectly healthy car up ahead, so it's amazing and quite frankly astonishing to see how well Roger Christensen is able to manage the damage. Doesn't look like it has any deficit in terms of top end speed. It's difficult to tell exactly what the picture is because this Valkyrie 877 car is saving as much fuel as possible, lifting off a lot into each braking zone. But we are as well, coming up to the stage of the race where we are expecting drivers to start thinking about their pit stops, especially in the BLC 1 class. The drivers should be able to make it just over the hour mark. It's not a fuel-heavy circuit. This is whoa, Fabrice Gonet's really hitting the curbs hard there, losing a bit of ground, which allows the Mercedes to catch back up. What's happened here? This is Jonathan Poulet under pressure.
This is Joris Svinen. I think it happened just ahead of second and third place in BLC 1. Or maybe not. Certainly. That's a bad place for Sweden to go off. Yes, indeed it did.
It was also just ahead of first and second in the BLC 2 class as well. You just saw the RPM car closely followed by the Valkyrie car as well involved in that one, just having to take evasive action. This is Matthew Schroeder up the inside of, and that was Yannick Willems. A bit of a flash of the headlights from Yannick. I'm not sure what message he was trying to convey, but maybe it was one to say, right, you go on and I'm going to slipstream you and maybe save a bit of fuel, because that's, I think, the best thing that 999 car could do at the moment is just manage the race, not get drawn into a battle, because sometimes if you're constantly fighting this noisy curb there, if you get drawn into a battle and you keep trading places, you both lose out on time. And I think the best thing to do is just to try and work together through all of this, as this is the battle for the lead in BLC 2 as seen from the cockpit of the 17 Audi. Thomas Villiers very close
look
to
at the Belcar team game here,
diving up the inside.
Roger Christiansen was giving no way to the 17. He basically let his teammate through, and then he refused to leave the door open for the 17 to come on through as well. He had to come off of the accelerator, and now at the 32 having to get past as well. Here we go.
That's the way to do it. Set it up a few corners in advance and use your car's strengths to your advantage by just attacking the corners a little bit harder, using the downforce and getting so much closer and so much more exit speed that move onto the brakes is just that little bit easier into the next corner. Hasn't really affected things in terms of the battle in BLC 2. It's still as close as ever. However, in BLC 1, the gap has started to grow just a touch on the account of that traffic. It's now over 1 second between Valkyrie X-Type competition and Boots and VDS by Undercut Red in BLC 1.
There was a double loss of position on track here as Lucas Romano comes through. And I think that was on the 81 of Sibo Bere Brooks. Indeed, that's the Brab Charlie by Actimo. interclass battle, but for on-track position here. So still sort of racing one another and just showing how a quick BLC2 machine is very easily able to hold off one of the BLC ones for a relatively long time. Here comes the Rondo from the Lambo. And that's going to be it, I think. And on the hour mark, Edward, without saying too much, we still have the lead battle in BLC 2 here. It's separated by just about a few tenths of a second. But for the first time, I think we can say that the race is starting to settle into some sort of rhythm here. It's been a very, very hectic opening hour, and there's been a lot to survive through for all the teams of all the classes, basically, here.
Yeah, it's been just as hectic as I think both you and I imagined, and I mean, to be fair, I didn't expect it to be as dramatic in the sort of first 30 seconds as it was, with drivers off left, right and centre, even before we actually got into the first corner. But nevertheless, it has been a dramatic affair, and one that I think will be going right the way until the end. We have this BLC2 battle that I think is going to be the main draw of our attention. Roger Christiansen, very quick indeed. That RPM car has a very strong lineup of drivers, so it's not going to be over just yet. And I do want to see what will happen when they swap over driving duties. And now all of a sudden it's the next driver of that Valkyrie Except car. Maybe the driver getting in will want that car repaired, or maybe they'll just see the pace that Roger has and think, you know what, maybe I'll be able to replicate that. It's going to be a bit of a gamble, but do you know what? It looks fine, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be all right just to carry on with that sort of front end missing.
If it works, it works, and I think that is a good way to look at it, to be honest. Yeah, but I'm just going to see here if we can locate of the cars slightly further down the running order in BLC 1. And we'll go on board here with Arno van Hout at the green flag. See maybe what happened to the Lamborghini. But that's actually behind Van Hout here. And actually, Edward, seeing it from Arno van Hout's point of view here, it looked very, very clean. It looked like there was no real drama at all. Here as we have the opening round of pit stops on the hour mark for, well, the first of the BLC 1 machines. A few cars taking the extra lap. That'll be an Ars, that'll be Valkyrie, Bootsen by VDS, and then the Sim Racing PE by ROI Management car, doing at least one extra lap compared to the Simpact Noises car. We'll have driver swaps for everyone who's in right now. So it'll be Jonas Holm for Simpact. It'll be Yannick van Overloop for SimWorld.be Fest, and Babo Follinen for Sim Formula Europe, and Jeffrey van der Hagen for Lexaro Racing. And Jonas Holm has a big slidey moment there, Edward, on the pit exit.
Yeah, a little bit of a moment there. Obviously, you can change the tyres at the same time as you change the fuels. That could just be a case of the cold tyres. Oh my word. Forced a little bit wide there. Not sure of what the car ahead was doing. That was the BLC 3 machine, the 100 of Fabrice Cornelis. And that was just, I think, a little bit of miscommunication between the pair of them. But like you said, it's interesting to see the cars coming into the pits at this stage. Now we have the rest of them going through to make it over the hour mark. Iron Irish Competition GT3 in from the lead of the race, handing it over now to Jonathan Poulet and Valkyrie Excite Competition. I don't think, though, they'll be able to hold on to that lead for much longer, as they will be needing to make their pit stop in a few moments' time. so far, so good, isn't it, for our Irish competition? We said about them trying to get a real championship fight back on here tonight, and I think, to be fair, they're proving exactly why they are the reigning champions.
Definitely so. Definitely so. A difficult time here for all of the drivers in the car's second as well, having to settle into a rhythm, coming out, well, head on in traffic to something that might have settled down somewhat, Edward, but I predict a little bit of a resurgence of fighting, maybe even here, because with all of the driver changes, that are taking place here. Well, let's see just what we get. I wonder if that was a penalty for the Boutsen team. They spent a long time in the pits there, Edward. And as in quite a long time. They're out now, but they've lost a number of places.
Looks like a speeding on pit entry penalty by the looks of things, because they've spent, what, stationary, another 40 seconds in comparison
that would make
to the rest
sense.
Of the field.
It's 40 seconds when you have a service, right?
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah, so I think that is, sadly, a penalty for the Boutsen VDS car that was going so well and challenging Valkyrie for that second spot. But, of course, anything can happen. We are waiting, of course, for Jonathan Poulet to come into the pits, who's still been able to carry on astonishingly. I'm not sure what is powering that car, but whatever it is, it's certainly sipping the fuel little by little, looking after it very nicely. In fact, actually, is that Jonathan Poulet now behind? It is actually the cars.
Yeah, but he's behind
out on circuit.
Yeah, on track, but it's
for track position.
It's a lap now, right? Yeah, exactly. So we've seen this before, Edward, with specifically Jonathan Poulet and the 677 car in general. They've been incredible on their strategy, making some fuel margin, some average lap consumption numbers that must seem ridiculous when compared to the average lap times they've been hitting as well. Into the pits they come as well. Jonathan Poulet just taking those extra minutes into the second hour. That could give them a bit of an advantage coming in to the final hour indeed, but it will be a gap to close here on the leaders as Ricardo Ferreira is making his way around in the number one Anash competition car. Dries Rohart on Sim Racing BE by ROI Management. They managed to overcut the Simpack car basically, and are now 5 seconds clear. A little bit of a hectic outlap there for Jonas Holm as well. Now I think under a bit of pressure from the Bravo by time the 42 car here of Maxime Robrook. And then further down here, that's the Lexaro car, who's been in the pits already. Sort of slicing in the middle of the BLC2 leaders.
Looking now, of course, that gap has still sort of stayed around about the same, hasn't it, between our large competition GT3 and Valkyrie Excite competition, around about that 14-second mark. But now it's going to be time to see what these drivers can do behind the wheel. Ricardo Ferreira still going strong as ever in the large competition GT3 car, and it looks to be a very comfortable race so far for the number one.
So far, indeed, they'll have to find a lot of time there on the final pit stop if they're going to make it competitive on the strategy alone here. Valkyrie Excite competition and the 677. There's something that I haven't gotten around to at all, Edward, and I had a bit of gremlins with actually getting the sim to run properly at the beginning of the broadcast, and now that I'm trying to get an internet browser up to do this, it's starting to struggle ever so slightly, but we're not going to cheat ourselves, or you indeed out there, of it. So here, an hour and 6 minutes into the race, we're going to go over the standings coming into this race. And with the first and second place, at the moment, in, well, reverse order, because you're looking at the championship leader here. But they lead by 43 points. Or they don't lead by 43 points, but they've scored 43 points here over the opening 2 rounds of racing. The Anash Competition GT3 car that's currently leading with 42 points to their name. Very, very, very close indeed. And then 10 points behind of the Anash car with 32. It's Bootsen VDS by undercut. In BLC 2, it's the Valkyrie X-Type 877 that leads with 51 points ahead of the RPM 32 car. So actually a bit of the same situation there in BLC 2. The RPM car, I'm sorry, on 38 points. And then the GTE Racing by Siemens car, the 99 machine, with 30 points. But I'm actually not quite sure they're even on the grid here tonight. And then in BLC 3, it's Traxxas by JWS Cars that has also had a bit of a rough start to this race. They've collected 52 points. The 100 car on 32, that's making a strong comeback. They're in the pits now, and I think as the final car in BLC 3, we'll see just how they stand when they come out the pits. But they're on 32, 20 points behind, still in the fight though. Simworld.be Rapid in the 114 car, 30 points to their name so far, so very close to the 100 as well. Just to get that covered off, I think a necessary bit of information to give a bit of an overview on just what's been going on over the opening 2 rounds of racing here. To those that might not remember, it's been certainly been impressive. Edward, at that opening round at Sebring, that overtake into Sunset in the PLC 2, that was of course the 6-7 or the 8-7-7, apologies. But one of the best overtakes we've seen, and last corner, last lap overtake for the win. How often do you see that? Not too often on my account, to be honest.
No, not too often whatsoever, but it was great to see. And who knows what the virtual Belcar will hold here at a circuit. It hasn't raced it before, so there's plenty of chances to see things that we haven't seen before. You never know what's just around the corner in this championship, which is why I love it so much. Here we go. What will we see between these two? Jonas Holm going very defensive there, trying to keep the Bravo car, but it goes far too deep into the corner, and Maxim Rubik takes that position easy as you like.
Yeah, baiting him into really committing to the defensive move, and just ever so slightly getting too quickly into the corner. Now getting held up though by the 100. Very easy, I think, on this track as well to get sort of greedy in traffic, and it's a thing you really want to avoid, I think, because just doesn't really have the space. And something that I've noticed as well is that the track tends to sort of bottleneck in on itself on several places where it goes from being relatively wide to being, let's be honest, not very wide at all. And that's another thing to be wary of. And again, with a track that's just new to the service, of course, those of the drivers that's been here in the real-life Belcar series will, of course, know the track pretty well. And then, of course, a lot of those that hasn't might just find it their first lap around the track whatsoever. And that's always a tough sort of position to be in.
Yeah, it's obviously tricky for a lot of the drivers out there. And I think some of it is compounded just by the circuit itself. Even if there weren't any other cars out there, it's still tricky because you don't really have a lot of room to breathe. The straights aren't the longest here. You're almost always putting some amount of steering lock on, either setting up for the next corner or attacking on your way in, trying to balance the car on the way out. It's just constant movement and needs your focus all of the time. Now, here we go. I think this is the first few pit stops in BLC 2, and it's Nicolas Pigne taking over the Arnage competition car.
Yeah, indeed, as we're seeing the first couple of pit stops in BLC 2, that's going to be in expectation of the rest of the field. And then we'll see if there's going to be an advantage already here at this point for Roger Christiansen and the 877. And Edward, with that damage to the car, wouldn't you just, being that you know they have a fast repair, would you just, if you were a team boss here, just say, let's just get that car fixed and make sure that, as you mentioned earlier, for instance, the radiator hasn't taken any damage and that we won't be risking anything dumb towards the end of the race here?
Yeah, I think that's probably the smart thing to do, is just, like you say, to get that car fixed as soon as possible, because you don't want to risk anything. And I mean, Christiansen is going very quickly at the moment, but just imagine how fast he might be going if that car was fully healthy. It's a scary thought, to say the least. The two of them out in front in BLC2 have actually pulled out a sizable gap now to third-placed ART Sim Racing. It's 30 seconds over the course of an hour. Now, it's Vince Peters coming into the pits, which I think releases the Valkyrie car. Yes, it does. So now that 877 has clear track. This will have to be a demon in-lap if he's to try and overtake and claim class leadership in BLC2. Got a bit of traffic, though, which might play its part. That's the 12 car of the Gregory ranks of ART Sim Racing 2. As it stands, though, it's all to play for, isn't it? Roger Christiansen having to go very aggressive just up the inside. I think that was Gregory Ranks letting him have the position. Smart stuff. Realizes that battling around with class leader isn't going to help his race whatsoever. But now, I think our attentions will inevitably shift to the ART Sim Racing car once Christiansen comes into the pits, and just see where exactly they will be on pit exit. Jamie Malema currently in second place. The IC Sim Racing car, the 35, is yet to pit so far as Kenny Hedemans gets underway. Time stationary is about a minute.
A minute
by
and
the looks of things
6.
there.
Yeah, so very, very much on point to more or less all of the competitors in class. And they'll be on track.
Is the Valkyrie car coming into the pits?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, he isn't. He's carrying on. Huh. Wow. So this is interesting. You did see on board that the Valkyrie Exotic car was saving a lot of fuel. Look at that. Fastest lap of the race so far in BLC2. That is a very strong time indeed. And now you're going to wonder, right, what more can they do? In fact, actually having a look at that, it was only a second slower than the BLC1 class leaders last time around there. That is a supremely strong lap time there by Roger Christiansen.
And yeah, actually
he's pushing harder and harder. You can just see now getting every apex nailed. Sorry, Hasse, go ahead.
Just 0.3 of a second off of Florent Gilliam, who's currently running second in the 677 championship leading BLC1 car, lapping 0.3 of a second. Of course, on full fuel, that is true, but still mightily impressive, lapping just 0.3 quicker than the BLC2
with damage
leading sister car. With the damage, that is very true. So you just wonder what that car would be doing without it. They did have a little bit of a moment early on, Edward. They were in pole position by a very, very healthy margin. And here we're talking like, as I remember it at least, 6/7 of a second down to second place. So a clear advantage, but then maybe getting caught up ever so slightly. We could see maybe actually it would be interesting to see the green flag.
Going.
Oh, they're not going in yet. Roger Christiansen goes on. And speaking of drivers and teams that have been sitting at
the fastest lap in the class again, 1:40.0.
And this, that's actually matching the BLC1 top runners in the field, Edward. That is mightily impressive. Not only that, they are about a second clear let alone that. Never mind a second, Edward. They are almost 3 seconds quicker than anyone else in BLC2 at the moment. What we're watching here is a lesson in patience, fuel saving, and then putting down the hammer to serve a dish of utter destruction for the rest of the cars in that class. With that damage as well, they must be wondering, what the hell?
Kenny Hedderman hasn't got any answer to this. 2 seconds a lap slower last time around. But obviously, the earlier pit stop, having the heavier load of fuel, is going to be harder for him to get those times in. So at the moment, Roger Christensen is in a very good position to exit the pit lane as the leader of the BLC2 class. Speaking of the BLC2 class, the LSE Sim Racing is into the pits. Angelo Laverse taking over command of the 35 after I think Jamie Malema exited that machine. Now though, Roger Christensen, surely this time this car will make its way into the pits.
Gonna do another one?
Continues on. How on earth has that car been able to carry on for this amount of time? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely no idea, but this is pretty wild, to say the least. What a job they've been doing over this first stint. And I don't think I recall...
half a second off of our Nash Competition GT3 class leaders and race leaders in BLC1.
And that's with a bit of traffic, added on to that as well.
We keep having to repeat the lap times because it refuses to sink into my brain that Roger Christensen, with that damage, is able to go as quick as he has been. That is an absolutely amazing performance behind the wheel. Probably one of the best stints in a car in BLC2 that we've seen so far this season. That was a little bit scary, wasn't it, Hassa? For a moment, you thought that was going to all go awry, but luckily the awareness of the drivers managed to keep the damage away for the time being. Like I say, sorry, go ahead.
I was just about to say fresh man in as well for Boots and VDS by undercut in the 17 car after having served what we believe was a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But Hugo Bemelmans here has come on through. That was a stout move on Jonas Holm, who found himself in the middle of a 3 wide coming into a track on a point of track that doesn't seem to really invite into too much, at least into that sort of racing. But deep there, ever so slightly for Bemelmans.
Belcar have kept going again in BLC2.
That is insane. But I mean,
are they going to try and make it on one? I think they have to have, by the letter of the law in the rules, a like 2 pit stops to change drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they could theoretically, if they carry on saving as much fuel as they have been, they could do it on 1 pit stop. I mean, they won't be able to. They will have to do an extra pit stop, but still. That's astonishing.
I have to agree. It's wild, but we've seen him lift and coast for so long as well. And when you think about it that way, the straights really aren't that long. So if you take away, as we saw in some of these situations, Roger Christensen getting onto the clutch, getting on the clutch, and properly coasting for what was essentially, half of a straight before the braking zone, and hardly even losing time while doing it. You do see where it was coming from. But this is one of the biggest pieces of one of the biggest lessons I think I've seen in fuel saving and just how to manage a race, as you said, Edward. Not only manage the damage, but the race as a whole. A brilliant performance so far from the 877. It's been untouchable in BLC2.
Yeah, it has been. It's been one heck of a race so
Here
far.
We go.
Our corrects up coming into the pits now. Finally, you're going to see the car stop in its pit box, and the damage should be repaired right away. Gaetan Anger. Hang on a minute. They're not repairing the damage. That is interesting to say the least. Gaetan Angers behind the wheel now. So that is...
Or is it just because it's taking on the fuel first?
I don't imagine so, I think. I mean, maybe.
Even with the fast repair?
See.
It should be immediate, right? But they could have looked at it and say, okay, it's just maybe it's a 30-second repair or whatever, and
see, they're not taking the fast repair. I mean, it's not seemingly affecting the pace of the drivers whatsoever, but from what we can see, that entire front end is just ripped clean off, and they're carrying on like it's nothing. Like the car's perfectly fine and healthy.
Of course, took a little bit of repairs here on the pit stop, but they're just, I think they're just gonna sort of take them.
And now look at the gap that they're gonna have to RPM.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty substantial,
not even
I think.
Through the chicane yet.
No.
Wow, that is a big gap between Valkyrie X-Type and RPM. Is it over 10 seconds? Oh my word, it is. It's going to be around about 11 to 12 seconds, the margin. That's a filthy stint there by Christensen, which has seen them just catapult themselves up to the lead of BLC2 with a hefty advantage at that. A brilliant stint by the Norwegian. Probably one of the best I've seen all season in terms of just raw pace. And the shift that he put in at the end there, those lap times were ridiculous. Even with the damage, forget about that. To be lapping half a second off of class leaders in the class above you is amazing. And add the fact that he has damage at the time, hats off to him. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So it's pretty wild. It is indeed. So an hour and 20 minutes into the race, just a few minutes before Edward May and myself is gonna go on our half the race gone break. And with that, I'm just gonna give you a quick rundown of the top 5 in the different classes. It's a nice competition, leading by 15 seconds ahead of the Valkyrie X-Type, competition car. Sim Racing BE by ROI Management, third in BLC 1, followed by Bravo by Airtime, and in 5th place at the moment at Booten VDS by Undercut and the 17 car. Oh my word, Edward made another pit stop here. What do you think it is?
Oh dearie me, was there something like a drive-through penalty? Was he speed on the pit exit potentially? Didn't have the pit limiter set? Oh my word. What we were just praising Valkyrie X-Type, all of a sudden it's come completely undone. Gaetan Angers, it looked like, for me, if it was away on pit entry, it would have been obviously taken at the pit stop. I think that must have been to do with maybe an unsafe pit exit, or maybe just not having the limiter checked. We'll have a look and see this time around as he comes out the pit lane. Doesn't seem to be anything going on. Maybe it was just an unsafe pit exit. We'll have a look and see if we can Hasser at the pit stop last time around before we go on our break, just to try and dissect it and see exactly what went wrong, because now they find themselves well over about 30 seconds off of the BLC2 class leaders.
Yeah, that is very, very true indeed. And I'm just going to cipher through. It'll be a short moment, but I will indeed find us the pit entry and exit. And let's just see if we can figure out what happened to the 877 car.
Have a look if we can. There we go.
So
it's very interesting, isn't it? Just to see what happened. So this was Gaetan Angers. Is this the first pit stop here, Hasser?
I think this. Well, we'll quickly see if it goes on the jacks. It is. If not,
it's taking the fuel and then it goes up onto the jacks afterwards, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But this should be the Might just be the second one. I'm actually not quite sure. Well, there should be the long one. It had 1 minute 24 on it. That would make sense as a long one. They had a pit time of 29.
Okay, so this was the penalty pit stop. We just seen. It doesn't go up onto the jacks, just carries on. I'm just trying to figure out which one it was, if it was the unsafe pit exit or if it was maybe potentially speeding. Either way, it's not going at all to plan for Valkyrie Exile. But all of that hard work done by Roger Christiansen, it now has to be done by this man, the Frenchman, on home soil, Gaëtan Anger, here in Magny-Cours. Let's have a look now.
So this is Roger Christiansen on pit entrance. Doesn't look to me like he was speeding coming in. But it could be so much else as well. I don't think that's gonna make us.
It's if we could have a look at that, just see what it was like on the pit exit. I think was where we saw it on the way out of the pits. Was the bigger issue there? The pit entry, I think, was fine because otherwise he would have had to serve the penalty at that moment in time when the car was stationary. It was on the way out.
Here we go.
We have to have a look and see.
Gaëtan Anger, maybe he. Does he? Oh,
yeah. Dipped a couple of wheels over the white line, and I think that's all it takes.
I think that is enough indeed, yeah. So that has really compromised the 877 now, and they... Look at that lap time, Edward. Wait, 1:39.7. Now on fresh tires, but full car in terms of fuel load at the moment, and they are absolutely hammering it. Setting a lap time that is my apologies, but again, the early part of it still matching the BLC ones here. It's rather incredible. So it'll be a one to watch here. Halfway through the race, we're gonna go on a 5-minute break here, Edward and myself. I'm not sure we made it all the way through, Edward. The standings. Believe we did make it through on BLC 1, but on BLC 2, by the way, it's Kenny Hermans for RPM leading now. It used to be these guys until they had their penalty and served it. They're out now. Again, in third place, in between them and the leaders are Arnage Competition Pink and the 10 car, driven by Nicolas Pignard. And then fourth in class is the ART Sim Racing 2 car, the 12 machine, driven by Gregory Franks. And then Angelo Luerse in the sister ART Sim Racing Cup, the number 35, fifth at the moment. In BLC 1, it's Michael Holsters in the SimWorld.be Rapid Machine, 114 car, 10 seconds or so clear of the 100 machine, now driven by Brazilian Leandro Verde. Chris Van Hoek in the B-Sim Racing G Machine, currently third. Yuri Crispain for Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars in the 6 machine, fourth place for them at the moment, and the 876 of Kimbe Haidt, the Firaco eSports Black Machine, currently sitting in fifth place. With that said, we'll go on board with our overall race leader for a few minutes here. Enjoy some singing V10 and some good moves here from Ricardo Ferreira, Edward, and I will be back in just about 5 minutes' time. And with a crackle of the bang of the V10, we're back here for the final hour and 25 minutes of this third round of virtual Belcar racing here for this 2023 season. And when I'm picking up some action just slightly further down in BLC 1 now.
I'm picking up some lap times in BLC 2.
Yeah, I saw those as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. Here's Yuri Crispin, I'm afraid, who's had a bit of trouble in the 6 car. They were currently in 4th place in BLC 3, and they've just... Yuri Crispin just going straight on there. Jeremy de Boever with a little bit of a moment, and then Tim de Hont, whose 9 car has seen a bit of it all. Oh, just a straight flyer, and then on the throttle, just over rotating into the soft barrier. They'll be all right. Back to live pictures here, Ricardo Ferreira, and then there was a bit of a tight situation. I think that was the Lexaro car of Jeffrey van der Hagen and Bavo Fallen up ahead.
I think I'm going to give Tim de Hont a bit of a benefit of the doubt for that little moment there. Obviously, the front end going into the soft barriers. I think maybe it was done intentionally because we've seen what happened last time Porsche went headlong into the barriers. It seemed to get an extra sort of couple of seconds worth of lap time suddenly out of nowhere, because I have no idea how this Angers is continuing to carry that pace that we saw by Roger Christensen, and it is beggars belief. At 1 minute 39.32 Hasso, as we see Bavo Fallon.
That was the same. There was three replays of the same moment stacking up on one of another. That was interesting.
Hasso, just have a look at the lap time by Gaetan Angers. 1 minute 39.32. It's ridiculous. It should not be that quick, especially when you look at it and see the damage dealt to it. I mean, they must be thinking somehow the car has gotten faster. Otherwise, why would they not be trying to fix the car? They must have had a reason. Like, they've just seen the damage and think, right, the car's damaged, but
it's quicker, and it must be quicker. There must be something with the damage, how it affects the car and the setup that just works like some magic here. I don't know. We're gonna have to ask him here after the race, Edward. They've been very good to talk to over the opening round. So
absolutely.
I think I don't think it's gonna be hard to get anything out of them. But interesting it is gonna be for the post-race interview. They are, however, still 3rd in class. They do still have 7 seconds to close on the 10 Anage competition pink car. Mind you, that gap was 17 or so, like something last time I checked.
30 seconds when they came out of the pits after the penalty. So this has been a heck of a redemption arc for Gaetan Angers after.
But that was 30 seconds
on the exit line.
So they've gained 13. There was 30 seconds on the leaders, right? So that's 17 seconds on the leaders now. That's still a 13-second net gain on just what is honestly.
It's been about 20 minutes, I think, since
just going to be a few laps, basically.
Pits,
yeah, 20 minutes or so. That's relatively impressive, to say the very least. In the pits,
that's fairly underselling it, I think, to be honest, because this has been an astonishing drive, hasn't it, and a real masterclass. Even though it's not been the cleanest, when you look at the pace, you can almost forgive them that it's been a little bit scrappy, because they're pushing this hard all the time, every single lap. Of course, there's going to be a few mistakes here and there, miscalculations, misjudgments. It wasn't a huge overstepping of the pit exit line, to be honest. So, again, it's just one of these things that can happen and slightly derailed their race, but the way they're fighting back from that disappointment, that adversity, it is really admirable, and I think gives us a lot to look forward to going forward into this race, and what defense potentially RPM will be able to manage, because at the moment it looks like they just can't, or for whatever reason don't have an answer.
At the moment, Edward, the gap around the top 2 here in BLC 1 is around 18 seconds, and it really seems to be going in the direction of an Arch competition and Ricardo Ferreira, at least for the time being. As we're coming towards the final bits and bobs, the final 20 minutes of this second stint. But still very much open, especially around third, fourth, fifth, sixth. But fourth, fifth, sixth, very much up for contention. Perhaps even with a few cars behind there still in it for those top 5 in BLC 1. Oh, and there's been a problem for Jorit Svinin, and Dimitri Coulon has made a bit of an overtake, but further down the order we'll see this one though. Jorit Svinin in the 992 car, central in the picture. Oh, heavy on the brakes, just about manages to avoid any contact.
Thing there.
Yeah, definitely. Well done.
Hasser, if we may actually have a little look at BLC 3, and particularly the Arnage competition Eau Rouge, being driven at the moment by Leandro Verla, but at the moment, those lap times, they are very strong for Arnage. Look at that. A lot of time being gained there, around about 7 or so tenths taken off of the gap to the leader.
But look
really battling hard.
Michael Holster's here. Oh, this is Jorit Svinin. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong car. Yes, indeed. 0.7 of a second. Grabbed out of the 114 on that last lap as well. So we might very well see it come together within the final hour for the race win here in BLC 3 within the two, or between the two BMWs. Mercedes, when we saw qualifying, Edward, Mercedes, apart from this 114 BMW, Mercedes were looking strong, but seems like it's the BMW setting the pace in BLC 3 at the moment. I'm just looking through. The spread certainly is coming on to the field by now, but look at the advantage here. Nicolas Pignat and Angers is right there, and it was 7 seconds just a few moments ago. That gap has come down with lightning speed. They have straight line advantage on everyone else like nothing I've basically ever seen before. They're flying along. You have to wonder
if they got more ground effect or something. Is like the hole in the front of the car just funneling the air through underneath, hunkering it down? I have no idea, but look at the pace of it. It's just rapid. I mean, even through the corners, look at how much the confidence with Gaetan Anche to attack the curbs. And again, getting the car pitched in a little bit earlier, but look at the speed gained through the corners. I think it's just the braver, and look, the move, it's already been done. Blink and you're missing
straight through, like,
up into second place.
That is not a cup car, Edward. That's a GT3 Porsche. I think they're fielding today. That's the only explanation I can really come up with. Of course, all jokes aside. But so it would seem. Certainly, they have another gear. And he's just driving away, whether it's on the setup or... I think there's been situations before in builds of iRacing where certain cars with certain kinds of damage could indeed all of a sudden go quicker in a straight line, and maybe even quicker generally around a track than what you would see before. But it shouldn't quite be this way, you know, and maybe we'd see some changes coming up in some of the next builds. I'm not quite sure of it. Maybe it's just on pure talent, maybe knowing the track. It's just weaving his way through the traffic here. It's impressive to see. Very congested up ahead there for Gaetan Angers. Drove past Nicolas Pignat as if the Arnage competition pink car wasn't there at all. This is a real test, though.
Look at all of the traffic here. Up the inside of the other Valkyrie car, I think there was a bit of communication between the drivers, even though they're in different classes. There's probably a bit of telegraphing there of what was happening and what Gaetan wanted to happen. Here we go, out of the corner, the other Porsche Cup car, likely to try and get out of the way, not make it any harder than it needs to be. I think that was Jorit Svinen. Gaetan has just been able to pass, and now setting up the move, looking to at least, but struggling a touch, trying to go underneath the car and power out on exit, which he does. I think that was actually not sure which of the DLC 3 cars that one was. But again, look at the amount of fuel saving he's doing. He hasn't really got a car to slipstream off of, but still jumps the clutch, really just saves as much as he can.
It boggles the mind. It still boggles the mind that they can fuel save this much and then still be a whole lot much quicker.
Even with the traffic, they're doing 1 minute 40s.
DLC 1 car up ahead here, like it's a.
Even with all of that traffic, they gained over a second, nearly 2 seconds.
Brilliant stuff there from Gaetan Angers, really picking up the torch from teammate Roger Christiansen.
Leandro Verla picking up the pace as well. Personal best in the race so far by the Brazilian in BLC 3. That 100 Arnage competition, Rouge car does seem to come alive later on in the race. I'm not sure what it is, maybe about the way they approach it or maybe the setup. Something about that car, it does seem to get stronger and stronger as the race goes on. You could just see a little bit of a wiggle actually onto the brakes. You don't see the BMW do that at all. So with the setup, they've got it a little bit pointier. And that's probably going to be really useful around a circuit like this where you're constantly trying to turn. You need that front end bite around here. It's such a difficult thing to get in this BMW as well. Oh, look at again over the curbs. I'm amazed that they take it as hard as they do. I mean, it can't be doing the car any favors whatsoever. And if the driver's using direct drive wheels, they are going to be feeling that all through their arms.
It's going to be like a night at the
sim
gym.
Racing car going faster.
Oh, that was nearly contact between the two there. I don't think Leandro Verde was too excited about it, but no damage done.
Look at
how much we go.
The sim racing G car, as I was about to talk about before, we were rudely interrupted by that BLC 1 car just sliding up the inside. It's going a second faster than all those around at the moment. In fact, actually, all of a sudden, the Valkyrie GT4 car has just set the fastest lap of the race so far in BLC 3, but Chris Van Gucht is going very quick indeed, and all of a sudden you got to start to think and maybe wonder, are we going to see all of these cars close up at the very end and have almost a three-way fight for the lead?
You wouldn't necessarily hate to see it, would you? It'd be interesting to follow because the tendency keeps up coming into this final hour.
Has Gaetan Angers overtaken Gus Franken? I think he might have done.
Yeah, they did. They had a bit of a back and forth here. Let's watch it back. Down towards turn 1. Maybe Gus Franken a little bit confused to us of why the almost getting intertwined with one another. There the Lambo comes through, but then the Porsche with massive traction on the rear on the exit just comes straight on back, and Gaetan Angers sort of playing with the BLC ones on a level playing field here. It's incredible.
Now
to
look
see.
at it again. The Sim Racing G car again faster than those ahead of it. This is brilliant to see because at the moment Michael Holsters, he's getting caught by second and third at a rate which would probably see them all together just a little bit before the end of the race.
That is actually true, and the gap between Michael Holsters in the lead in the 114 car and Chris Van Gucht here in the 912 in third, at the moment 16 seconds. So while it is there, and while it is certainly a substantial lead, it's certainly not impossible. There's still an hour and
stranger things have happened.
Definitely an hour and 11 minutes. Sorry, still to go. So in that regard, much stranger things have certainly happened, and I think and are bound to still happen. You know, we haven't seen the weirdest, have we? I don't think I have, at least. I have an expectation that the strangest of things is just to befall us. Very good
one
race.
One of the strangest things that's happened this race is the fact that we've seen a car with damaged front end completely ripped off going faster than pretty much anyone else on the circuit. That's, I think, one of the strangest things I've ever seen. I mean, I'm pleased to see it's an amazing display that we're being treated to, but still, I can't really quite wrap my head around it. So it's one of those times where the word alien can get thrown about a little bit in iRacing terms when you see drivers that are so quick. Oh, they must be just aliens. There's no way anyone can be that fast. But I mean, the performance by that 877 car, both drivers, it has been truly out of this world. And you can see exactly why, because again, that car does now a 39.089.
What the hell is that even? That is absolutely nuts. Gaëtan Anger, the performance of the night, that much is very much certain. There is, of course, a possibility that they took a little bit less fuel and that Anger might be on a shorter stint here than leaving it for Chris Jensen to go a little bit further on the final one. It's just a bit of speculation here on my part. Not quite sure of it. But that gap to the 32 car, Edward, has all but evaporated. It's just around 2 seconds, and those 2 seconds will be gone very, very, very quickly indeed with the pace that Gaëtan Anger is going about this track with.
I'm loving this, Haas. I really am. I mean, even the fact that he took the fight to the BLC1 car of Goose Franken, I think that's really entertaining just to see those two battling away. Gaëtan Anger, the little underdog, the slower class car coming out on top. It has been very, very good to see. But now you can see RPM, they're going to start to see that Valkyrie car get bigger and bigger in the rearview mirror, and they all know exactly what is happening. The rate that the 877 has caught them, there's just nothing that Kenny Hermans can really do at this point. There's now 38.7. That is ridiculous. There's only one car out on the circuit that had lapped faster, and that was actually Ricardo Ferreira in the lead of BLC1. That's the only car that was going quicker than Gaëtan Anger just there. That's absurd. I'm sorry, but that is just disgusting. I love it. I've seen many things on iRacing in my time commentating, Hassa, but I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. Gaëtan Anger now goes through into the BLC1 class lead, and as much as Kenny Hermans would have loved to have fight, I think he knew that there was no sense trying. It would be a pointless endeavor because the pace of that 877, both drivers, they're just too quick at the moment. I'm not sure what's gone on, if there's like weird glitches with the damage model as to why they've got so fast, or if it is just pure grit, determination, and just ability that's seen them where they are. But regardless, I'm along for the ride, Hassa. I'm absolutely eating this up and loving every minute.
Yeah, sorry, I was on a bit of a muty moment there. It's a BLC 1 for a sec, just to check up. 27 seconds now, the advantage for Anage competition. And it's the 677 for Valkyrie, and I think Tim DeHunt went off just by the side and on his own, on his very own. Oh, just manages to keep it on the gravel for the first part. And the second, now he gets to watch it coming back on track. And he does so, keeps it balanced. Oh, just about. Scary moment to see that for the race leaders. That battle for third place is definitely heating up here. The 61 car is being gained upon by the 42. The Bravo by Ertime has done a very, very, very good job. It's done a very good job so far. And so it has to be said, sorry, the comeback drive here from the 17. Hugo Bemelman's Boots and VDS by Undercut Red Machine. It's all coming together here. Third, fourth, and fifth as well, now within not much more than 10 seconds. Edward coming in towards the final round of pit stops, not much more than a few minutes away here. That's going to be some decisive moments. Track position could be really important, especially for the cars that might have a little bit extra pace. Might not be enough to get it done on track, at least not without expending quite a lot of time on it. We saw that early in the race as well. A number of machines, and another problem, I'm afraid, for the 9 car of Tim de Haan. And yet again, it's not quite the carbon copy.
No, not quite the same place, but certainly one that was almost reminiscent of something we'd seen before. This was Glenn Hopkins. Was this maybe a bit of contact, or was it another identical moment just over the curb? Does the car overtake? Yes, it does. Maybe that was a bit too eager on the throttle. And this time into the concrete barriers, but I don't think it was an impact that had a lot of energy into it, so I think he's gotten away with that one just a little bit. But out in BLC 3, Hasse, you've noticed something I think I have as well. Look at Leandro Verla. Last lap, that was 0.6 of a second gain. In fact, actually, no, it wasn't. It was 0.9. It was a little bit of a... no, it was actually, wasn't it? It was about 0.6 of a second there. Now it was half a second, but still, regardless, it has been a real charge by the Brazilian. And at the moment, it's going to be coming maybe even before this final stint, before this last round of pit stops. Chris Van Gogh has been struggling a little bit in traffic as well, so I've just noticed the lap times have not been as consistent as we've been seeing from the front too. So Chris has lost a little bit of ground to the pair in first and second. But as the race goes on, as those two maybe start to battle and fight for that first place, that BSIM Racing G car can easily find itself brought back into the frame when thinking about the BLC 3 class victory. So plenty to play for, that's for certain. In BLC 1, it seems that the gaps have started to expand just a little bit, haven't they? We've noticed that there isn't really a close fight to pinpoint, and the gaps are sort of ebbing and flowing one way or another. Maxime Rurock is very quick at the moment and catching up to Dries Rohart by... last lap was about a second, but obviously we don't know exactly how the traffic played into it. One thing we have to see as well is the pace of Hugo Ellerlands, because there was obviously that incident in the pits, the sort of 40 seconds added to their pit stop on account of, I believe, speeding on the way into the pit lane. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hess, but I think that was what the penalty was given for.
Yeah, so I believe,
as a result,
yeah, I believe that's
had to drive back through the field, don't they?
They've been on a charge. They came back in something like sixth or seventh. They've gained the position on Simpact, with about 13 seconds at hand on them now. And then Edward just noticed the gap from Boutsen and Hugo Bemelmans here to Dries Rohart in the 61 car. And third place was 12 seconds just a few laps ago. It's now 9.5. So they're closing in. It's all third, fourth, and fifth in BLC 1. Closing back in together here as we're coming into the final round of pit stops. In BLC 2, it's of course still the 877. Leading by, what is that, around 7 seconds or so. The RPM car 32 here second, and then Nicolas Pigneur and the 10 machine third at the moment. The ART Sim Racing 2 car is exiting the pits here, so one of the slightly earlier stoppers, but they'll be well prepared for taking this to the end of the race. I think that's pretty certain. And then we're expecting most of the BLC 1 cars, Edward, to come in basically at the end of the current lap, maybe just one extra lap, because we don't get the entire warm-up lap at the beginning of the stint, so they might just be able to run that little bit longer here on stint 2. So I think it's not going to be a problem for anyone, for once and for the first time this season, to get into the final hour. Oh, there's been a problem here for Lucas Weinand. What happens here? The 992. Oh, was a janky moment and spins it and manages not to cause too much chaos. I say because there was a bit of chaos caused in the vicinity here. David van Slambrook was off, so was Mitchell Costers. That must have been that was actually. Oh, that was all on his own, having a bit of a sketchy moment in the 3 car as well. And here comes Hugo Bemelmans in the Boutsen car into the pits.
All suddenly kicked off, hasn't it, Hasse? All of a sudden, everyone having their own little moments just before they're coming into the pits, at least in the case of the BLC1s. Like you say, we have the final round of pit stops for the BLC1 class just going ahead now with Peter Elmans and Jonas Holm. Needs to be careful, of course, of the pit lane. As all of a sudden we were talking about the pace of Chris van Gucht in the 912 BLC3 car, the sim racing car, and just now they've set the fastest lap in class and gained nearly a second on the cars up ahead. So all of a sudden it's started to look a bit more brighter for their future in this race.
Yeah, it's all very, very, very close in PLC3 as well. They'll be tight on it into the final hour, and whoever can time the strategy the best, basically, I think mostly in terms of trying to avoid the worst of the traffic. And oh, a little bit of a spinner there. That was David van Slambrook, I think, in the Audi. Anton Dupin had a bit of an off track as well in his Lamborghini in the 13. Oh, just continues the rotation. Ends up in the grass. And Van Slambrook, who was, well, that was somewhere else on track entirely. The 177, the Audi there. Oh,
that was close, wasn't it? Being collected, quickly gets out of the way. Andrew Verla into the pits now for the BLC3 car that was chasing down class leaders.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a pivotal moment in their race. As long as they can get in safely, get out safely, they'll be in good stead. Chris van Gucht carrying on, looking to keep the charge alive. It might be a slight shorter pit stop, actually. In fact, it should be sort of shorter for all of them because they need to fuel till the end. And a lot of these cars can go sort of for around about 1 hour and about 10 minutes normally on a tank of fuel.
And the GT3s are normally pretty close on the hour. Very track
GT3s are about the hour. I think GT4s, I think, usually it's about 1 hour and 10, I think, for both BLC2 and BLC3, from what I can remember.
Carlos Diegues.
Yeah.
Carlos Diegues into the car here for Anash. Freund Guillaume, of course, has yet to take the final pit stop. Another fastest lap in class for the 877. As Martin van Rijwijk has passed Jeroen Butler in the pits. Diegues is still sitting there. Van Rijwijk is, of course, a fair bit away behind there. Dries Rohat, though, the 61 comes in as well. And Robroek on the 42 car, who's had the pit stop already, could be looking at a position gained here. That Bravo car, as chat is chatting on about as well. 42 car here having a very, very good race. So far, at least, in the best race of their season. Still stationary here, the 61 figure. It get moving quite soon. Here we go. Oh, the 42 not quite there and getting held up into the Lycée complex here, and not quite the time to do so. They were in a position to really make gains, but it'll not be much more than 12, 15 seconds maybe. Maybe even less to separate them from the 61 car up ahead. But also, interestingly, look at this. Thomas Cuvillier is back in the car as well for Boutsen on the charge. Just over a second up to the 42. They could be on for something as well here, Edward.
Yeah, they could be, but it's just so difficult at the moment, isn't it, when the traffic is there? And oh my word, was that... It looked like there was a dive to the inside, and almost that the 777 looked to almost cover that one off. Bumping doors on the exit. I want to have a look at that, Asa, because that was very interesting indeed. But Villiers going for the inside. We'll have a look here. There was a flashing of the lights on the exit. I want to see the actual the inside, because there was.
I can do it. There we are.
It looked like, yeah, for some reason, the 777 was trying to cover that one off.
But they aren't. Oh, are they really fighting the Florent Guillaume car? They're a minute and a half up the road. They should be well clear of the Boutsen car here.
The Sim Racing G, fastest lap of the race in BLC3, really starting to turn the pace up now.
And they've gotten past. They have yet to take.
They haven't pitted yet, but they're really putting the pressure on and closing in on the SimWorld B Rapid.
So it's only the 100 car of Leandro Verle that took that pit stop a little bit early compared to basically everyone else in class, it will have seemed. But we'll see if it develops in any different sort of way here. Michael Holsters. That last lap here, another second gain for the 912. Has really looked to come alive here in the final moments of the middle stint.
There is one thing I will say about this Mercedes, is that it is very kind to its tyres. As the stint wears on, the car just seems to come alive, where all of the other GT4s do tend to struggle. I noticed it particularly actually in a series I commentate, which is a GT4 only league. You've got cars like the McLaren, which are by far the fastest over one lap. But over the course of the race distance, the Mercedes, it does get that extra little bit of pace relative to the rest of the field just in the last sort of few moments of a stint. So that's something to consider going forward, of what the complexion of the battle might look like. Of course, we have the two BMWs closing up to one another. Michael Holsters, who needs to worry about the 100 Arnage car, but then also I think later on there could be a very dramatic and last-minute charge by that number 912. Plenty to digest and look forward to. Nevertheless, what we have right now on our screens, Thomas Cuvillier chasing down Maxime Rubruck for 4th place.
Maybe with a chance to make good of the backmarker BLC1 machine. That's the JWS Motorsports car of Jorn van den Akker, clearly with some damage to the front end there. Flashing lights for the 42. Probrook does not want to be held up here. And into the pits, the 677 comes here. It's Jonathan Poulet for Valkyrie X-Type competition. And that's going to mean back in to the race lead goes Carlos Dieguez in a Nash competition. And look at this. That relatively short stop, and they're still 20 seconds down, so it's going to be a tough ask for Jonathan Poulet. Now look at this here, Robrook, Cuvillier, very close to one another as Jorn van den Akker just about gives way. The number 17 car still looking for a way through. Of course, they are well within the pit window, so wouldn't necessarily think it is weird of the 17 to come in. But of course, 42 car being at a very decent pace as well.
watch this go. I mean, you can just see how difficult it is for everyone involved. The traffic is just so tricky to manage around here. You can just imagine the struggle of all of the drivers out there having to fight to get through. As for some reason, on my screen, it shows that Thomas Guvillier has, for some reason, he's missing a wheel. I don't think that is the case, and it looks to be going on just fine. So it looks like just a visual glitch on my end, but nevertheless, the drivers are really needing to use every ounce of awareness and just determination to get these moves done, to get them done cleanly, because all it takes is for one lapse of concentration, either by yourself or by those you're trying to overtake, and your race can become undone.
As Anton Dupin finds himself meeting that soft barrier head on. That was a little bit of a moment on part of Anton Dupin there, but few more pit stops. That's the RPM GT number 33 car of James Slats that was in. Still Edward on the status quo here. That BSIM Racing 912 Mercedes is still closing the gap. It's now under 9 seconds, and Leandro Verle is around 58 seconds. Oh, sorry, he's 1 minute and 8 off of the race leader. 58 seconds off of Chris van Hoek. But drivers down here might have shorter pit stops on the menu, on their schedule here, as it's the final 50 minutes of racing here. So maybe, just maybe, that's going to be what makes a difference here. Maxim Robrook in the 42. 3.5 seconds, Edward, off of third place. Jeroen Diekman in the Sim Racing PE by ROI Management. That 61 car still hanging on to it, but it's going to be tight. It's still closing down, and it's going to be a long time, I think, as it's looking right now, at least, for them to hang on to it.
Yeah, definitely. So the Boutsen VDS car could still find itself in with a chance at the podium, despite that huge 40-second penalty they had to serve in the pit lane for speeding. That is going to be a really interesting moment of this race, just to see how they're able to come back from that. But they're looking good so far, as the Hoff's not looking good at the moment, with a little bit of a bump over the curbs and then facing that soft barrier on the left-hand side of the circuit. But here we go now. Steven de Leerschneider coming into the pits from the lead of the BLC 3 class, allowing the Sim Racing #G car to go through. And now we have to, I think, really focus on where the Arnage Competition Eau Rouge car is, because at the moment it's just coming in towards the final sector now, and I think this is going to be what you would imagine as the battle for first place. Down off of the jacks, just taking the fuel now. Fuel done at the same time as tyres in this car.
It's very much going to be a three-way battle, so it seems, at least, right?
Coming in towards the final chicane, but the Simwell B car is already on the pit exit. Needs to be careful, though, not to fall foul of the white line on the exit. Gets it done nicely. No issues there. And what is the gap between himself and Lucas Erler? Around about 9 seconds. So the gap hasn't really changed much. If anything, it's actually grown a touch.
It might have been a little bit of a bad traffic thing there for the 100, but also remember that the 100 car went into the pits quite early compared to the others here, so it would have to have put in a bit more fuel to make it to the end of the race, and that's going to cost them extra time in the pits. So not the best strategical position to come in early there for the 100 car, but 9 seconds should be okay. Now look at this one. It's going to be interesting, Edward. The 912 coming in. Chris van Hoek and BSIM Racing G. going to be a driver swap, I would expect. And then the quickest possible pit stop they can get away with will just go to the battle here for 4th place in BLC 1 as Maxim Robruch still fending off the 17. The Boutsen car trying to get the run here, and I think he does so pretty damn well.
So close, isn't it, between these two? And look at this, a little cheeky dive up the inside, a bit of a wiggle, and then diving onto the brakes goes the number 17, and the 42 just has no grip left to fight her all the way around the outside and concedes the position. Look at that. You can just see a little twitch, don't you, of the car as he's trying to get up the inside, gets it to stick, and there's no real reply coming back. I think it catches the car headed off by surprise more than anything else as Jelliver Stratton comes out of the pits, and this is going to be the battle between himself and Lucas Verla. And actually, look at this. Lucas Verla actually drops back a position into 3rd. BE Sim Racing up into 2nd. So now what can they do to charge up and get the lead of the race?
I think they were sitting. Weren't they sitting this way around? Yeah, they were.
No, they were sitting in 3rd. Jelliver Stratton was. I think the BE Sim Racing car was, because it was the 2 BMWs leading the way. So all of a sudden, now it's changed a little bit. And now it's Lucas Verla who has the Mercedes just up ahead. But those two need to work together. They can't get drawn into battles, because if they do, they lose any chance of winning this race.
Look at the gap here from Jeroen Diekman. So this is 3rd, 4th, and 5th in BLC 1. And they are separated by, well, not much more than 2 seconds at the moment. So Jeroen Diekman looks like he is going to have his hands full here. We're going to go on board with the door cam here. Just seeing that Audi grow. Oh, all the way through here. Into the pits comes Nicolas Pigneur. It's going to be the final pit stop for the 10 car as well. A little bit of traffic here. Oh, and the 17 gets collected! And that's going to be a major incident for Cuvier. They have their fast repair, but it's going to cost them a lot of time.
I'm just baffled about how that unfolded, to be honest. Was it just miscommunication between the pair of them? Was it the 17 going across the nose of the 999?
We'll have a second.
Let's have a look here. So, watch it, and it's all the way around the outside. And I think it's just, they don't leave each other enough space. I think the 17 takes it far too tight on the 999.
Yeah, I think he just cuts across. You can see the 999 is basically on the white line. And Cuvier, at least...
Architect, sadly, they have their own downfall, that number 17. They're going to carry on with the damage. Has that affected the car in terms of its handling? Is it
not going to work out for him. Look at that, it's crabbing. It's going very slowly.
Healthy, does it?
No, not at all. I think they're going to have to come into the pits, regardless of whether they want it or not here for Stratton. And look at that, the 100 car really pushing on to retake 2nd place from the 912. And this is going to be sweet music playing into the ears of Steven de Leersnyder, sitting about 10 seconds up the road here. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Already, these pair, from battling so hard, have lost about a second. It was about 8 seconds, the gap between 1st and 2nd in BLC3. Now, that gap is up to 9, nearly 9.5, just from that little bit of side-by-side. So, it's going to be interesting, but from my reckoning, it's going to be a struggle for them to keep it battling side by side and gain on the lead. So they need to either sort themselves out or basically give up on winning this race.
Yeah, I think these cars will still have an extra pit stop to do. That is the ART Sim Racing car, the 35. Although, as I know, here they come. That is the pit stop here. for the 17 into, I think, will be the fast repair. Unless they've already taken it, Edward. That's an awful long time to be holding still. And this is going to be positions gained for Simpact as well as for SimWorld.be. Up ahead here now, Robrook on the tail of Jeroen Diekman. Still in the pits here, Edward. That is a piece of terrible luck, I'm afraid, for the 17 car.
Dear. And we were just talking about the prospects of them finishing on the podium, Hasse. After all their setbacks, we thought for a moment the worst was behind them, but one final sting in the tail for that Boutsen VDS car has seen them drop all the way down now and potentially down outside the top 10.
And to be fair, it looked like the worst was beyond them, and they were really hitting their stride there. And just a moment's, I'd like to say, just a slight lapse of concentration cutting across.
A moment of madness. That's what it is.
Yeah, cutting across the GT. As I said, I'm not quite sure because I didn't see it on board, but so looked like it was just ever so slightly coming across. But the track does go left right there. It's definitely easy to mistime it if you want to be as close as possible.
Dear, oh dear. It's what happens when you're pushing so hard, is what we were talking about, Hasse, the fact that in multi-class battling, and especially on a track that is as tight and twisty as this one, you need to have just the biggest amount of awareness possible of where your car is relative to those around you, and one small misjudgment, see you all of a sudden thrown out of order, as I think that was a bit too deep, wasn't it, potentially by the Sim Racing BE car, and I think Maxime Rebrook takes great advantage of it. Yeah, Jeroen Diekman, I think, just runs a little bit wide into the corner, too much speed, and has to slow it down a straight line, and essentially hands back the position, tries to fight it on the exit, but just doesn't really have any ability or any pace to fight onto the brakes into the next corner, so concedes the position. But that is now the podium, potentially, for the Lamborghini, the 42 Bravo by Otto. I mean, what a topsy-turvy race it has been for this car, hasn't it, Hasse?
Yeah, the 42 has been a very, very stable car, I think, throughout the race, at least up to this point. So kudos to them sort of going through on that. And so it has to be said, cool heads do tend to prevail. So it would seem for the 61, but some of the cars behind here, it would still over half an hour left. Smelling that they might be lacking a little bit of pace here up ahead, and a little bit of indecisiveness in some of the traffic situations here, as you can see. That might be smelling blood. Here's the 992, almost cuts across the 61, who gets a little bit of a hit there as well. Oh, and the nerves, I think, might be creeping in for Jeroen Diekman here. That was not as smooth as you would hope it to be. The car looks all right to me, but he's made this mistake before, and then has another unsettled moment. And the sharp left-hander. Pressure building. He's lost 5 seconds on this lap alone here, as Maarten van Rooijweg is following Gaëtan Anger around.
This
new fastest lap for Diegas here.
Well.
Sorry?
Valkyrie, so 877, yet to pit as well, Hasse. So while the gap is looking very big to RPM, it isn't one that is necessarily representative until they come. Actually, no, they have pitted, haven't they?
Yeah, Gaëtan Anger have pitted. RPM somehow has a pit count on my screen that says 1.
Wow.
And a pit lap on lap 43, so that sort of makes sense.
And I get they both haven't pitted, I think, because Gaëtan, they have pit count of 2 because of the penalty.
They had a penalty, so they'll take an extra pit stop, and that'll probably be why. Yeah, that makes sense.
thought for a moment we were seeing RPM had pitted, and that was why the gap was that big. But no, the gap is just that big compared to class lead in BLC2 and then second place. I mean, at the pace that they have, could we see them put a lap on their entire class?
That is possible, definitely. We'll see just how it plays out. Here's the 61.
Immense, I think, to see that, but nevertheless, what a performance it has been by that 877.
So a close battle now between Koen Klopman and the 10 car. Still needing that pit stop. Angelo Loerse and the ART Sim Racing 35 car. They must be ready to come in shortly. 17 still in the pits. And the gap between, oh, look at this. The 100 car ahead of the 912, and this one I think we managed to sort of miss. Here it is. Lucas Verde and the BMW on the outside. Oh, but manages to hang on to it, and it's very good traction out of the corner. You can really see the Mercedes sort of hanging a little bit behind earlier in the stint. We'll see if it turns in their favor at any point. Carlos Dieguez there with a 1:37.38, the new fastest lap of the race on his last lap. That's very impressive to say the least as well. Verstraeten in the 912 here has lost a bit of time on Steven de Leer Snyder. And so has Lucas Verles, who's looking very good for the 114 here as we're swiftly approaching the final 30 minutes of this race. It's an Arch competition, GT3 leading Valkyrie X-Type competition, and the Bravo by Time 42 car rounding off the BLC 1 podium. That is Jeroen Diekman for Sim Racing PE by ROI Management, and Martin van Rooijwijk from Simpac Noises there in the final bits of the top 5. Then it creates an on-share for the 877 Valkyrie X-Type leading Vince Peters and RPM. They're in the pits now, so we'll see just where they pop out, looking to fight the 10 Anage competition pink car with the ART Sim Racing machines of Angelo Loerse. Benjamin De Pape also there in the top 5. BLC 3, probably actually I think the closest one all the way through podium places here, with Steven de Leer Snyder, Lucas Verde, and Jelle Verstraeten still taking the fight to one another. We've got Antti Poelmans for Firaco and the Traxxas JWS Classic cars. My apologies. Number 6 machine of Stefan Verhofstadt rounding off the top 5. A little roundup here, just over 30 minutes to go. Do hope you have been enjoying the action here on a Friday night. Roger Christiansen coming back into the car. So that's going to be their final pit stop. Still that pit stop left to do. Okay, so we'll see just where it puts them in relation to the rest of the gang, but I think they'll be well clear to the best of my knowledge. Vince Peters 40 seconds up on Koen Klopman after that last pit stop. Talk about an advantage. And then Jeroen Diekman, who's losing time on Maxime Robroek. And more importantly for him, I think losing time to Martin van Rooijwijk as well. That gap to the Simpac car is now under 9 seconds. So that could very much be a battle for position as well here. This scrap for 4th place in BLC 1. And Edward, after 2.5 hours of racing here, I think we can safely conclude that whatever we was expecting coming into this race in terms of chaos and attrition has indeed been true. Maybe not as much as we would have expected throughout the race. It has been there, that's very true. But certainly within the opening 5-10 minutes, and especially within the opening 5-10 minutes of this race here.
Yeah, I mean, what we have here is a potential setup for a grandstand finish, but the race is starting to slow down just a touch here, Hassa. It's at the point where we have the calm, I think, before the storm, like we're mentioning. It's all going to kick off, and I do want to see, of course, the big story is just the gaps that will emerge later on in the race. I think we've seen now Roger Christensen take over command of the 877 in the lead of the race. Vince Peters there is just in second place, but nowhere near in BLC2, sadly. But still, it's not been a bad effort from RPM. They've still been a strong competitor. When you look at their nearest rivals behind, Kuhn Kloppmann, they've got nearly 40 seconds to them, so it's not like they've been slow at all. It's just somehow 877, even with the damage, has got all of the pace in the world, and it's just astonishing. We got to keep talking about it. I know it will sound like it's the Valkyrie X877 show, but to be honest, I've never seen anything like it, Hassa.
No, that's true. It's quite incredible. The pace they've been going with, and especially after that damage, it's.
Hang about
I haven't seen it before.
is closed up. Has something happened to Lucas Verla? He's had a personal best fastest lap, but then all of a sudden, Yellow Stratton is closed up to him. Something must have happened on that last lap. A 148.94. There must have been a mistake or something for that 100 car, because that gap has suddenly shrunk by, well, about nearly 3 seconds, Hassa.
Yeah, it's definitely diminished, and so it is for Jeroen Diekman, who's also losing time very consistently to the Simpact car, number 34 machine of Martin van Rooijwijk. Simpact Noises. Noises, a Dutch producer of hearing protection. Actually also makes motorsports specific hearing dampeners. Anyways, it's a cool head on the shoulders of the Dutchman here to keep this pressure on. At this time of the race, still eyeing out a chance. Just 4.5 seconds. Well, pretty much, probably a bit more than a chance to get up and ahead and score another fine position here. I've been consistently up and around the top 5 on the debut season in the virtual Belcar series. It's been fine running so far from Simpact Noises. Jeroen Bartlett slightly further down with Ward Mallets, and then the 17 car back out on track again. And Verstraeten now seems to have thrown up a lasso, sort of hooked on to Lucas Verde here, Edward. And I don't think he has any intentions of letting go. You can just hook on to him and just sit there and wait for the mistake, or maybe just for the Mercedes to come alive underneath him and to really work the tires in instead of overworking them, and we'll have that advantage in the final half hour. We could yet see swaps of position here.
It's
Mind
all
you,
about
Delir
nurturing
Snyder
this car.
lost. It's only 0.3 of a second, and he has a 14-second advantage on these two. But Delir Snyder was a little bit slower on this last lap. Could be traffic, of course. Don't make too much of it, but
don't
be watching
think
that one as well.
Delir Schneider is going to be under too much threat, but I think the real battle is going to be for that second place. The B Sim Racing car, it's going to start to come into its own. Definitely within the next sort of 15 minutes or so, it'll be really on pace, and it's going to be a bit of a handful, I think, for the BMW, the 100, to try and keep it behind more than anything else, just because it'll have so much more grip in comparison, both into the corners and out of them. And while the BMW does have good top end, the straights aren't necessarily long enough where the BMW's party trick will come into effect. So that's something that we'll potentially look for. As I say that, though, the gap has just suddenly rocketed up to nearly 1.7 seconds. So as soon as I said the battle could start to emerge, that gap has been increased by the BMW. So something might have happened there to the B Sim racing car. Tell you what's happened actually is the fact that the Arnage car has just done its fastest lap of the race so far, which is probably the reason why that gap has suddenly emerged and grown the way it has. And it's because, well, he's pushing very hard, is Lucas Verla behind the wheel, Brazilian, and as much as he can to hold on to that second position. So we are having a great onboard view from Martin van Rooijvik, just what it's like dealing with traffic around this circuit. You can see that it's almost constantly a battle of attrition to try and get yourself around and make those little diving moves up the inside. You have to be committed, but also essentially make your intention very clear with the cars around you. You can see there was maybe a chance for a dive up the inside, but then thought better of it. But then on the exit, the gap's there, so he's committing for it. And it's all about just seeing the opportunity and seizing it more than anything else around here. You can't see a move that could be on and sort of think about half going, half not, because that's where we see the incidents happen. You need to essentially see something and go, right, this is my apex now, and leave no doubts in the driver that you're overtaking's mind that you are coming through. Now, again, great little shot now, and you can see just how much traffic there is just up the road. While it was slightly easy to overtake the BLC3 class cars, I think you were saying in the first hour, Hassa, how much harder it is for these GT3 cars to try and overtake the Porsche Cups.
The 40. Oh, that was the 42, Edward. Third place in BLC1. But yeah, indeed. Normally, so much of what you rely on is being able to go straight quicker than the classes that are slower than you around a lap. That if you have free air ahead of you, but having to do it all in the braking zones like this, it's a different dynamic. We've seen the drivers really taking well to it, but it's also not a new dynamic for the series. It used to be the same with the Radicals. They used to be perhaps even slower than the GT3s in the straight line and even quicker around the turns. So in that regard, it's probably a bit more well-balanced with the GT3s and the Porsche Cup cars, but it is a funny dynamic. I think many drivers would have done a lot of endurance racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. It would probably be pretty well felt with this particular combination of GT3s and Porsche Cups.
I think so. Let's see. Jeroen Diekman, car that's had a decent race so far tonight. You're going to be getting some good points on the board for Sim Racing by ROI management. And at this stage of the championship, that's essentially going to be what the teams are focused on more than anything else, is just seeing the amount of points they're going to be scoring over the course of the season and thinking, is it worth the risks? Is it worth fighting for this position, getting involved, getting damaged, and then suddenly seeing yourself scoring almost nothing? So I think, well, we might be seeing drivers desperate for those points and making some daring moves. We might also see some teams deciding to hold on to what they've got and not take any unnecessary risks. It's going to be great just to evaluate which teams are taking which approach. But as we can see on board from Martin van Rooijvik in this Impact Noise car, they're going to be looking for that fourth place before the end of the race. We've got about 20 minutes to go. Not long left at all, really. But we could be in for a very entertaining finish between the pair of them here, Hassa. What do you reckon? Do you think that Jeroen Diekman is able to hold on, or has Martin van Rooyen just got too much pace?
I think Van Rooyen is looking very, very good for this overtake. At least he's been gaining very steadily over a period of time here. That gap was 10 plus seconds not too long ago. So with that in mind, it does look difficult for Jeroen Diekman on the Sim Racing BE by ROI management. It's half a second now, but of course one thing is indeed patching up, and passing is, especially on a track like Magny-Cours here, it is indeed quite something else. So whether it's going to be a breeze to get through, or whether Martin van Rooyen is really going to have to work for it here, we're going to have to see. But still, 20 minutes, and that I think really works into the favor of Simpack Noise's car. If it was 5, 7, 8 minutes left, it's a much easier prospect to be defending from someone for that amount of time than it is for 20 minutes, which doesn't sound like much in the prospect of endurance racing, but it's quite, as I think you'll be well aware of yourself, it's quite a long time to fend someone off for, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You can get a lot done in 20 minutes, Hasser, and I think you can see that there's going to be a chance for a move here for Martin van Rooyen. At least I'll hope he can get it done within 20 minutes. Can't afford it to be done in any more time, because otherwise by then the race will be over and done with. So, chasing down the Audi, a pair of them battling around the circuit, but once more you can see the nature of the circuit. It doesn't make it easy for the drivers, and I think a lot of it might come down to opportunistic moves with traffic. You can see one here. Look at this darting to the inside. Martin van Rooyen, he sees a gap, goes for it. He thought that the 61 car had it covered, but no, look at that excellent move by van Rooyen. Just the car, he feints to the outside, darts up the inside, sells him the dummy, and it works out perfectly. Martin van Rooyen, well, we said it was going to be difficult to hold off for 20 minutes, and van Rooyen wanted it done, well, within about 2. Beautiful little move. I want to see him just sell the dummy. He looked to the outside for a moment, and then as soon as there was exactly 1 car's width, look at that, darting to the inside. And from there, once he had the position up the inside, there was nothing that the 61 could really do about it. There might be chances to fight back, but I think the pace of that Simpack car is just a little bit too much to keep up with. This Porsche Cup car might play a part, potentially, but I don't think it will be anything too dramatic. Just look at it over the curbs, bounce it around, and actually sees what's going to happen and smartly gets way out of the way. Good stuff. So with one move done, what others will we be treated to as we go on board with Jelle Straten? And oh, what's happened here? Your own Vatler into the wall. Oh, and it was side by side with one of the BLC2 class cars. That was going into turn 1 and then through turn 2. Slide continues on into the tyre barriers. Not what he was hoping for whatsoever. Jelle Straten trying to close up to the Arnage competition car, and this is the point where we should be seeing the Mercedes a little bit more favoured with its tyres, but again, around this circuit can be just easy to push a bit too hard and to lose that advantage. Again, just trying as hard as he can to bring that gap down, attacking the corners a little bit too hard. You could just see the understeer creeping through. Carl refusing to turn in. And look at that, it's so much harder when the car ahead is putting in personal bests. Yet another brilliant lap time there. Fastest lap that car's done all race by Arnage competition Eau Rouge. Meanwhile, shining the spotlight on the 877, Roger Christensen, who has had a brilliant race so far. Obviously, this Valkyrie X-Type car could have been on for even more dominant finish had they not had that drive through, in fact, stop and go penalty by running over the white lines on pit exit after their first stop. But regardless of that, they've been able to come back brilliantly, and their pace has been brilliant. They have also been able to repair the car. You will notice it's actually got its front bumper rather than how it's been running for, well, 2 hours of this race with heavy damage while still setting those fast times. But actually, I'll just have a quick look at the lap times by the Valkyrie X-Type car. And it does seem a little bit slower, actually, than it was before. So maybe the damage was having some sort of a strange benefit to them, because the pace has gone more on par with the rest of the field, doing 1 minute 40s currently out there. So, interesting. Might be something to ask the drivers about later on when we get a chance to have a talk to them, Hassan, because we know that Valkyrie are always good for a chat, and they don't tend to hide things from us if we ask them at least directly enough. As we come to a replay here, and I'm not sure if I can quite see what's going on here. So you might have to help me out here, Hassan, because the replays aren't seemingly working out for me.
Well, I was just trying to have a look at the accident there for the 877. That's strange that the lap times are all of a sudden a second and a half slower again after the damage was fixed. So I have to wonder. That's Jeroen Diekman here in the 61. I'm still trying to hang on to the tail of Martin van Rijwijk here, Edward. He's not falling off yet. Lost a little bit. He was sitting there very well for a lap or two. Now it's about 0.8 of a second, and that traffic might be the deciding part. Just can't send it there on the 777 X-Type Valkyrie Mercedes, and just be a bit of trouble then, Bruin.
Gonna watch now. Jeroen Diekman, he's trying to keep up with and doing a good job actually of staying with this Impact Noises car, but I'm just not sure there's a real way through unless traffic plays a part, because at the moment there does seem to be a gap that is growing in clear air.
Yeah, it certainly is. Or certainly, it's still relatively close, but it does tend to look like it's going the way of Martin van Rijwijk here in this battle for fourth place. Just 12 and a half minutes remaining of this race. The 3 hours have absolutely flown by. It's been brilliant here tonight, I must admit. Much racing to have had has been very fine here. A good final sector though from Diekman. So the 61 car still does have a bit of kicking here, and we'll see. They have the tires here at the end of the race to bring it to the 34 car of Martin van Rijwijk. I think that gap up ahead, just now 14 and a half seconds, that's going to be very hard for any of these to close up to the podium. On the 42 car of Maxim Robroek. So for now, we're going to have to settle, it seems, with this battle for fourth place. The race leader, Carlos Dieguez, coming in from behind. Look at Jonathan Poulet. A lap time of 1:36.94, fastest lap of the race so far.
Yeah, certainly getting some good pace with them. Sadly, it's too little, too late for the moment. But regardless, this is still good points on the board, isn't it? Second place tonight. We'll still see them with a good haul in the championship, and I think that's the most important thing.
But mate, this is the class leader, the 114 in trouble. They managed to get out of it alive, I think, but only just that gap was much more than it is now. It's just down to about 8.8 seconds. Lucas Verle is pushing now like hell, and Jelle Verstraeten at that Mercedes, as we were talking about, Edward, looks to be coming alive, because on the last lap, Verstraeten with a 1:45.6, almost a second quicker than Lucas Verle ahead, and De Leer Snyder in big trouble. He dropped 4 seconds to Verstraeten on that lap alone. That was, of course, with a bit of an incident there but we could see it all come together here within the final 10-11 minutes in
might
PLC 3. It might just be fantastic here. It's been great, but it might just go up a notch here and go from great to fantastic in the end here for PLC 3 with the battle, three-way battle that might just ensue for the race win here.
Might do, but Hasta, I think actually seeing further back, we do have a battle actually coming to the forefront. I think it's between Hans Polmans and Stefan Verhoeft. Here we go. Stefan, the track assist by JWS Classic Cars, chasing down Viraco Esports Black. Now, looking at the lap times, they have been fairly evenly matched by the looks of things. But still, regardless, this is one that could be going down until the end. I'm not sure if Steven de Leerschneider is going to be under any threat from Lucas Verle or Jelle Verstraeten, but you can't afford any more mistakes like we've just seen, that's for certain. With 10 minutes to go, it's all about just nursing it home. You can afford to lose a second a lap or so. They just won't be close enough before the end to really make a difference. So no real incentive for Steven to push just yet. He can coast it home, but we know it's easier said than done. And if you tell a racing driver just to back off a little bit, well, that's just not something that they can do. Those words just go in one ear and straight out the other.
And especially in a situation like this and on a track like this with traffic as well, Edward, sometimes it's just easier to be a little bit more decisive. If you try to play it safe, then you'll find yourself sometimes at least getting held up that little bit more, and that just might spell trouble in the end. Now we're within the final 10 minutes of here, though we do see Leandro Verle. The gap, or was that the 101 car? I think there might just be a car in between the two. Yes, indeed, that got me confused for a second. The 101 machine there of Tom van der Kimmenade, then the Simpac car, and then the 100. So that makes it...
So we've just heard something from Race Control about the car. I think that is it in third place in BLC?
Oh, so position 3, Maxim Robrook, they still have to do a driver swap. Unless, if they don't do so, they'll be disqualified in terms of point scoring at least. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting indeed. I wonder how they're going to approach this here in the 42 machine, Edward.
They'll have to do it very late, or maybe they've just forgotten about it. It's something that could happen, but I definitely think that they've been racing in this championship long enough. They should know that you need to do 2 driver swaps to score points, but that is something that's very interesting, as we just see the 11 car, that's World Mallards, just into the barriers on the exit. Yeah. Over rotating, and then as soon as you get into the grass, the car just refuses to stop. But this could be drama at the very end for the podium, and then we will see Simpac Noises scoring maybe some good points for the championship, getting up into third place.
And it would be the first podium in their debut season here. And what a result that
Hearing as well has it's same for not just 42 car, but also the car 31, 7th place in BLC 1, and also car 177 in BLC 1. Hans Blankart and I think it's Hans Blankart in the 177, and Jeffrey van der Hagen that need to give way to their teammates.
So it would seem, Edward, look at this as well. That gap between Lucas Verle and Jelle Verstraeten has been coming down ever so quickly over the last few laps.
What did I say, Hasse, about the Mercedes?
The Leerschneider has been picking up the pace, so I think it's going to be safe for the 114 for the win. But this bite on the Mercedes is going to aid the fight to slay these enemies. I'm going to stop rhyming though, but the 100 car is going to be feeling the heat here, Edward. But you said manage the damage earlier today. You started the MC Edward May kind of thing. Now I had to sort of figure out some way not to get outshined by my wonderful boots mate, by the way, Edward. 5 minutes left to go. It's been brilliant getting back in the booth with you. It's been a bit of a break ever since we did the last race here, but I just want to say the Belcar, virtual Belcar series never disappoints. And yet again, I think we're in for a thrilling final few minutes here. The gap between these two, Edward. Sorry just to pull us out of it. But back into the racing here, because it's now underneath a second.
Yeah, and what did I say, Hasser, about this Mercedes? It has the tyre life at the last few moments of its stint, and we're getting into that right now. We need to be careful, of course, and mindful of the traffic, which he lets through. It's a rather battered and bruised looking Lamborghini. Goes up the inside. Number 5 car, driven by Jon van den Akker, currently in 9th place in BLC 1. All of a sudden, this is one that could be quite beneficial. Look at that, chucking up the inside. It costs a little bit of time. In fact, quite a lot of time now. Look at it. They're going to be nose to tail going into the next corner. And it's really game on for second place. They're starting to focus on getting a good exit, which he gets. And now the slipstream will help him all the way through this next flat out section for coming up to the next braking zone. Not a heavy one that you just have to guide the car through. But should he keep the speed up, which he is doing, gaps can start to open up and moves have the potential of being made. As the fastest lap of the race was in Valkyrie's hand in BLC 1, but Arnage Competition in the final 4 minutes have taken that from them. And look at Jelle Verstraeten closing onto the brakes, the speed of closing on down, the grip and the bite into each corner is just that little bit more.
Really doesn't make a lot of noise, this Mercedes, does it? When you just hear, I'm very much not mistaken, it's the same engine.
It's decently noisy on board.
It sounds, it's this, yeah. It's still much more tire and wind than its engine. But I like that about the GT4s, the sort of tuned down nature and the fact that it could actually, you know.
Here we go, Hasse van der Hagen into the pits. The 31 is making their driver change.
Yeah, so they're going to try to avoid that penalty of being disqualified. I think Maxime Robrook here might want to take heed of that. It's not too late to do anything about it. I guess you'd rather go in and get that driver swap done than
I think
anything.
The driver swap takes about 20 seconds, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and they are going to drop back quite a few places.
Better to drop back some places but still score points than to finish in third and score none.
True indeed. I can only agree, Edward. I can only agree. So Delia Schneider, 11 seconds clear of Lucas Verde. It looks safe for the 114. I think they can pretty much coast it home here. Look at Jelle Verstraeten here, closing the door on the 14 car, making sure that there's no interruptions, an untimely point for himself. He's just looking for the opportunity to get the run on the 100 machine, and he's looking for it here into the final bits of the Lycée complex. It might just be the run here, Edward. He's close, but not quite close enough. Hard to match, of course, the top speed of the BMW. If you can just get the nose in on the braking, it looks like the Mercedes does indeed have the traction. Look at the number 3 Porsche Cup BLC 2 machine there, just hanging in behind. Not wanting to get too involved. Here we go, though. A pass. Better have it made as well than to wait around for too long, although it's an interesting place to be, sitting and spectating the battle for second place. A little bit of a
shaky look.
Shaky look for all of these. It'll be squeaky bum time for these final couple of laps. Edward May, maximum attack here for Jelle Verstraeten, and see if he can gain second place.
Here we go as well. We need to have a look at Carlos Dieguez, see where he is out on the circuit, because we will be seeing the white flag when he comes over the line now, just coming through the final chicane. And you'll see there's only one more time around this Magny-Cours circuit before we'll be able to take the victory here tonight. And it's been a great drive. We haven't seen much of this Arnage Competition car. A lot of the focus has been on their BLC 3 machine, especially in the last few moments. But nevertheless, It's been a brilliant drive, and to be fair, not being seen much by our cameras is usually a good thing, because that means you're having a dominant race or an unassuming one and you're scoring some good points, but it has been dominant, led essentially every single lap besides the ones where they were out of sync slightly with the pit stops. There's been no other team that's been able to hold a candle to them. They've got the fastest lap as well, just to add an extra exclamation point onto their race result.
And I'm reading in chat, Edward, that looks like the Bravo car is trying to prepare the second driver swap here at the end of it, but they're not going to have the chance, I'm afraid. Though they are a lap ahead, so you have to wonder if they'll pit in and then be able to do the lap or not. And if they do that lap, it might just be on if Simpac can stay ahead of the Wonder car here, coming around to the checkered flag. Because that'll mean they'll do that extra lap, and they'll have that lap on him. Let's see if Robrook comes in. No, he goes on. So, a little bit of confusion there.
Depends on where the...
That's Max team. That's Bram, of course. So they're talking about another team. I'm not quite sure the message is through to the 42. Is it the 42 car?
Here we go, though. As the checkered flag has greeted Arnage competition. Yeah. And throughout all of the dramas further back, it's been plain sailing for Carlos Degues and Arnage competition. A great result from them, and they get some good championship points on the board to really start to defend their championship crown. Jonathan Poulet and Valkyrie Excite competition, while they had plenty of pace, it just was not enough to match the performance of the number one car out in front. And meanwhile, well, you can run out of superlatives for the job done by Roger Christian.
The 3 car across the line.
The whole team at the 877 Valkyrie car. And look at this, battling at the line. And it's just Arnage competition ahead of BE Sim Racing. But Sim will be rapid. Take BLC 3 class honours. A brilliant drive by Steven de Schneider, extending that gap at the end when things looked a little bit dicey. His pace was enough to bring them over the line in first position. And now, Hesse, we will go to Valkyrie X-Type in the 877 car. I don't think Brab are going to be able to get their pit stop done in time, so they will likely be scoring no points, but there will be a whole raft of points for this team. Valkyrie X-Type, the 877 car, over the line, and they have just been in a class of their own. A dominant drive, a few hiccups here and there, but they overcame them brilliantly, and that was probably one of the best drives I've ever seen in my time as a commentator. Just the pace with the damage was astonishing. Really great drive.
Great win indeed for the 877. Second place in BLC2 is going to go to RPM Vince Peters, and the 32 car solid drive by them as well. In the 10, Kuhn Klubman led Arnage competition. Pink coming home third in BLC2. And with that said, May, let's get the race results on screen here if they so are ready.
I think we're just waiting for a few more drivers to come across the line before we can get the results up on the screen. Not sure.
I think they're all pretty much there, aren't they?
It must be, but I'm not sure why we aren't able to get results up. So there must be something going on in the background before we can bring the graphics to you. But still, Hesse, what a race that was. Magny-Cours. We said that it was going to be tricky for the drivers, and it proved a little bit too difficult for some. But nevertheless, the racing that we got was absolutely amazing.
A brilliant race indeed. To round off a brilliant Friday night here with the virtual Belcar series and our first virtual visit to Magny-Cours, of course, a place that is visited yearly by the real-life Belcar series. So definitely a link there. And I think for those of the drivers that have been here in real life, that would have been a major, major advantage on a day like this. Let's see if there's anything to be gained here? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Indeed, results up on the screen here, Edward. In BLC 1, it's a nice competition. GT3, the number one car, taking the win. Dominant performance, 26 seconds clear of the championship leading car. The 677 of Valkyrie X-Cybe competition. Bravo by airtime gets third on the road, but with that driver change and pit stop missing, they might just be relegated, at least on points basis, which would give Simpact Noises third place points. And then it's going to be Sim Racing BE by ROI Management, SimWorld.be Fast, and then Sim Formula Europe, all the sim happening 4th through 7th place. Lexaro Racing in 8th, ahead of JWS Motorsports 9th, Raider Racing Panda in 10th, then RPM GT, Firaco eSports White, and Boots and VDS by Undercut Red, who had a terrible piece of luck there in the final bit of the race, getting punted out. It was going so well for him, but 20 laps down, and in 13th place they end up. Edward May, will be all yours for BLC2.
Yes, thank you very much, Hassan. What a race it was in BLC2. Valkyrie X-Cybe 877, one of the drives of the season. I think it's fair to say, between the pair of them, they were just completely peerless, even with the damage that car was having to sustain and carry on with, to come through with that much of an advantage, in addition to the extra pit stop and go that they had to serve. That was a brilliant drive by them. RPM, while they fought brilliantly and were still very quick in their own right, it was not enough, but still second place, good points on the board for their championship. Arnage Competition Pink round out the BLC2 class podium, head of ART Sim Racing 2 and ART Sim Racing 4th and 5th, respectively. Then we come down to DBR and DBRP, who were 6th and 7th. And then we have the two Brab teams, Brab Charlie by Actimo, and then Brab Alpha by Higher Time, 8th and 9th. Then we have Team Vision finishing down in 10th position. And Hassa, why don't you do just the honours of some late dramas that we saw in the BLC3 class?
Yes, indeed. The 114 car SimWorld.be Rapid Machine takes the win ahead of the 100 Arnage Competition Eau Rouge, only just hanging on to it at 0.2 of a second. They're clear of the 912B Sim Racing G Machine, doing such a good job today to just be up there on the podium. What a competitive race it was in BLC3. The 876 Firaco Esports Black Mercedes takes 4th place ahead of the number 6 Traxxas by JWS Classic Cars. Squadra Veloce by BSR gets 6th ahead of Arnage Competition Light in the 101 BMW. Then the 777 Valkyrie X-Cybe GT4 Mercedes. The Digitrax racing team, 999 car gets 9th ahead of BSim Racing S and Mass Motorsport in 11th and last place there for the 209. With that said, Edward, brilliant race it has been indeed. Let's get on through to do some interviews, and I'll let you pick the first driver and pull off the first interviewing bit as well.
Let's have a look. I don't know if I have the ability in my internet. I think it's seemingly having issues, Hassan. I'm not sure if it's.
You tell me who
fine.
you
I can't also seem to bring people in for a quick chat.
Who do you want to tell?
Let's have a quick chat with Stephen Schneider, actually, who put in a great performance.
My teammate.
Hello, Stephen. Who's put in a great performance in BLC 3. Some strong lap times at the end. Saw off the chasing pack. And Stephen, great to have a quick chat with you. Usually we start in BLC 1 and work our way down, but we thought, you know what, we'll be kind to you this evening and not make sure you wait too long. So great to speak to you. Just talk us through that race, because at the start and at the end, you seem to just have the upper hand around all the other cars around you.
Yes, first of all, thanks. I think it went good. We had a nice start, and just went for it. That's all I can say.
How is it like driving a car that is renowned for being a bit of a boat, the BMW, not necessarily the pointiest car to get the turning in dialed in around a circuit that is pretty much almost all corners. So how did it feel out there trying to overcome the nature of the BMW?
True. I had to make it float, really. Don't brake too hard. How to say? Yeah, my English isn't that great.
That's right, no, it's funny.
But yeah, it's just keeping the flow in the car. That's all that's necessary.
And obviously, it's not just a solo effort; it's obviously a team one. Just talk us through your teammate when he took over, and anything that you were able to do to sort of help get him accustomed to the car when you handed over to him.
Yeah, normal. Me and my teammate, we have the same pace, but on this track he didn't feel confident. He was saying it the whole month we were training, and every day he was like, "Yeah, no, I don't feel it here." But I'm sure next track he will be back on top for sure.
Just talk us through that when you have like a driver that is maybe not as comfortable in the circuit. What steps can you do as a teammate to sort of make life a little bit easier for him? What was there that you did this race that sort of took the load off him a bit?
Just try to make him relax every time he thinks he made a mistake or somebody passes him and he loses a little bit of time. I just say, doesn't matter, breathe. And that's the only thing I can do from here, I think.
Absolutely. Well, it seemed to work for you because his lap times were certainly strong enough to keep you in the fight and basically give you the car still in the lead of the race where you could just do your magic and extend the gap. Obviously, focus now is likely on the championship. Do you think you can take it all the way to the end?
I definitely think we can. The first two races we had bad luck in the first laps. We always get crashed from behind or by some GT3 car who crashed before. But we managed to get back podiums, so I guess if next races go well, we can go for the championship.
Absolutely. That's what we love to hear. Well, we'll love to see you out there the next time around. It will be a little while in the 1st of September at Oschersleben. Is that a circuit that you think you'll be able to carry on your fine run of form, mate?
To be fair, I never drove there before. I never saw the track before, but I'm confident enough. It's 2 months. We manage it, I'm sure.
Lovely stuff. Get practicing right away. I'm sure you'll be up there yet again, bud. Have a very nice day. But before we say goodbye to you, buddy, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out on the broadcast?
Yes, of course. The team chef, Jeroen. It's thanks to him we're driving this series, and he's doing a great job. And of course, my teammate also doing a great job. Always on pace, except this race, but it will be okay next race, for sure.
I'm sure it will, mate. I'm absolutely certain it will. You have a great rest of the evening, bud. Go and celebrate with your teammate and obviously get ready for the next one. We'll see you there, bud.
Thank you. Yes. Have a fine evening. And I also would like to thank you all for the nice organization. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. We don't do any organising. We just sit here and chat about it. It's all done by the other people. But no, cheers very much, mate. Take care.
Yes. Bye.
So there we go, Haas. A lovely chat there with Steven de Leerschneider. And I see you've brought in who you want to have a quick chat to. So why don't you get us started with the BLC1 class winners?
Yeah, it says Carlos Dieguez, but it isn't quite. It is Ricardo Ferreira, our race winner, at least, or indeed, I would just rather say, for a nice competition. Ricardo, beautiful performance today, just managing the race perfectly, having a pace that no one else was really able to match, having the strategy to match it as well, and then a sort of calm, cool race approach that saw you come through the road race without any real hiccups in traffic. How would you describe it yourself?
Hello, good night, everyone. It was a calm race today. I think, in my opinion, Audi struggle a bit on the tires, especially on the left side. Maybe Lambo, it's a little bit better. We know exactly that we need to save our tires because the left tires will suffer a lot on the entire stint. So we plan to weld the fuel. We plan well how to attack. To do the pole position, one more point, and to do the fastest lap. I was saying to my teammate, probably Valkyrie will try to do the best lap in the race. They will relax the tires because they need points. And yeah, it was a calm race. So especially for my teammate create, like, I can't remember, but it was like 15 seconds. And it was just to control until the end. The traffic today, it was awesome. The people respect more race after race. So congrats to everyone. And yeah, it was a good race for us.
And speaking about the traffic, Ricardo, we were talking about it before the race, Edward and I, and we're sort of expecting quite a bit of chaos. And as you were saying, it wasn't quite as bad as it sort of would seem. Do you think it's down to that respect from all drivers in all classes, just sort of recognizing that this is what we have to do to stay alive and see the checkered flag?
Right. With the experience that I have from old championships and in this one especially, I believe that the drivers will learn with some mistakes. And this circuit, you have different lines, and in my opinion, it's easy to overtake. You have, of course, the fastest chicanes. Then you need to wait a bit. But after that, it's easy to pass someone. The curious thing was on the straights and on the break points, just the slow classes, just open the door, let us go. And I believe that some guys, this type of championships, it's important for the community they start learning how to manage the traffic in one race. So congrats to you guys, and especially for the Belgian community, because day after day or race after race, they are learning. And I hope in the future you have better and better drivers at Belcar.
And a final question from me, Ricardo. You're in a really good position now. You've taken the overall championship lead now at the halfway point of the season, of course, with a lot of points, especially at the final race, the 24 hours of Salta, but a race that you do have experience with as well. Are you satisfied with your sort of point of approach for the final half of the season here?
Of course, when you win, all points are important. But as you said, the final round, it's the most important one. So when you win, when you do pole positions, when you win the race and do the best lap on the race, you create some kind of pressure on the other teams. But in my opinion, Valkyrie knows that. Boatson the same, sim racing be the same, so it will be tough until the end, mate. We cannot relax. For the championship, the last round, it's what decide in the end the final position. So let's keep working and do our best until the end.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to before we let you off to go and celebrate?
Yes, just thank you to my teammates that shared the car with me today, and for our sponsors and for my team March competition. Thank you so much, and goodbye, guys. Have a good night, and we see you on the next round. Okay.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Ricardo Ferreira of Anash Competition GT3, the #1 car and the race winners overall for tonight. We're going to head over to Edward May for the final interview of the evening.
And I hope all of the previous people we've had to talk to don't take this the wrong way, but it's probably the best saved for last. What a drive it was by you, Roger, and of course your teammate. You were at times the fastest car on circuit, even faster than the BLC 1 class cars. I have no idea how you did it, especially with the damage. Just talk us through that race, because it was just madness from start to finish.
Yeah, today doesn't feel good. We had a crash, and I don't know why, but the car went faster after the crash. So must be some kind of bug in the damage model of iRacing. And I'm really sorry for the other guys in the class for not, like, thinking back. When I noticed, I should have went into the pit and fixed the damage. Not.
I don't think so, mate. I mean, I was watching it, and me and Hasse were absolutely loving it. It was brilliant. He was sort of, I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, but a lot of the broadcast was essentially just the Valkyrie 877 show, just marveling at the lap times that were coming through. It was great entertainment, mate. And I mean, obviously, you had then the run in the pit lane with the speeding penalty, and just talk us through how easy it is to do that, especially in a car that doesn't have ABS.
Yeah, the penalty was because we crossed the white line on the exit.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, in the pit exit of this track, it's really easy to do. The corner is to the right, and yeah, the line is quite far. So yeah, quite easy to do it. Yeah, and yeah, and when we were driving it felt like amazing. The car felt amazing, and but anyway.
I mean, nevertheless, even after you repaired the car, I still think you were fastest car in your class. I think the gap still did manage to increase and grow. So I don't think it was anything that would have particularly affected the outcome of the race. It might have been a bit closer, but I still think you probably would have had it. So I wouldn't take it too badly on yourself, mate.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we would have been fighting for the win anyway, but yeah, and it would felt like much better if we just had stayed on track and trashed and everything.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, though, mate, you've got plenty of time, and iRacing have plenty of time to fix the damage model on the Porsche Cup car in time for the next round, the 1st of September at Oschersleben. Is that a circuit that you've got confidence at, and you think you can get another win at?
I don't have the track yet, I think. But yeah, put in some practice should be doable. I feel like, I don't know why, but the competition was much stronger at Spa, a Belgian track. So going to Germany probably suits us, like at least me as a Norwegian, better. So yeah, and yeah, looking at the qualifying, I think, I don't remember, I think we were 6 or 7 tenths faster than P2. So if we can manage to keep the pace up and do some practice, should be doable again.
Well, you are obviously currently leading the Belcar 2 class by quite some margin. I think after tonight that will be even bigger, but obviously it's all about getting it across the line. So we'll wish you all the very best next time we see you at the beginning of September. Before we say goodbye to you, though, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out on the broadcast, bud?
Of course, I will shout out Gaetan, my teammate, and Valkyrie X-Hype, and of course you guys doing such a great job with the broadcast and commentating. It's really fun to watch later, and yeah, you guys doing an amazing job with the league and broadcast and everything. So shout out to you.
Alright, thank you very much, mate. You do an amazing job driving and entertaining us. There we go. It's all love all around. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in about just under 2 months' time, isn't it? The beginning of September. We'll see you then, mate.
Yeah, a bit summer vacation is good.
Exactly, mate. Well, take care, and we'll see you then, mate.
Yeah.
So, Hasse, that was Roger Christiansen. Great to have a chat to, and shining a bit of a light on the damage that did seem to increase the pace. Very weird, but obviously it's not something that the drivers did intentionally. It was a something that's very, very strange, and I've never seen before on iRacing, but it still gave us a incredible moment of a BLC 2 car lapping faster than BLC 1s. It was brilliant to watch.
Yeah, and I like the fact that we get the cards put on the table, so there's no sneaking around with it. And I hope the devs get this information fed immediately, so we can get it fixed indeed. And that aside, Edward, we've had some amazing fighting across the fields today. It's been brilliant. BLC1 saw some beautiful racing throughout. And by the way, a little bit of a note there on BLC1, by the way, in the results. Simpact Noises gets third place ahead of Bravo by Eurotime because they did not make their driver swap in time. Their second driver swap, they only made one. And as such, it's going to be a first podium indeed for Simpact Noises. Just wanted to round that one off. We're going to be back on the channel here. Same time, same place on September 3rd at Ossersleben indeed. Another one of the new tracks added this year. It's going to be my first visit to there as well, so I've got a bit of learning in terms of the lefts and rights and the kinks and turns of Ossersleben indeed. Edward, as always, it has been brilliant, and a great thanks from us as well goes to the organizing team, as always, for having us on board. It has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in as well. The pleasure has been on our side on having you on board for the broadcast. Do tune in with us next time here on the virtual Belcar series. And a last word, of course, it's a great thanks to all of the sponsors that help us make this possible. I've been Hasse Rømer, joined by the brilliant Edward May. And I think the last thing that remains for us is to say good evening and thanks for joining us. Do take care, and we'll see you next time.